Hello, everyone. Welcome to this steering committee for vegan collective intelligence. Go ahead and wave, everyone. Everyone's super happy to be here. Great to see everybody. And maybe instead of a steering committee, it's more like a steering community because it's very open and we encourage guests to join us and join the conversation. We're going to first give some brief introductions of who we are. I'm Jamin Shively, and I am the facilitator today, and we'll definitely pass that around as we go. And I'm also co-founder and president of Radish.org, a good friend of Dr. Sailesh Rao, and good friends with all of you, and super happy to be here contributing and helping out, as we all are. And with that, so we'll first do brief introductions, and then we'll talk about envisioning our vision for vegan collective intelligence. What does that mean to us? What do we want it to evolve to become? How do we want to get there? How do we want to contribute? How do we see it happening? That'll be a great conversation. Next, I'll pass the baton to Ray, who will give us an introduction to and an in-depth discussion about the groups and teams that already exist on BaseCamp, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then how do we essentially inject those with collective intelligence and creating frequent series of conversations on each of those topic groups. I'm just putting the idea out there roughly. Ray will definitely refine upon that. All right, any questions or comments on the agenda before we jump in? All right, let's go to introductions, starting with Ray, followed by Jackie, followed by Carol. Take it away, Ray.
Thanks a lot, Jamin. My name is Ray Kowalchuk. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I have had a couple decades of a career in television. I'm a video editor specializing in post-production. And as I became involved in animal rights and vegan activism, I was exposed to a movie called Cowspiracy, which at the end of this public screening, they had a clipboard saying we're forming a new group called Climate Vegan. So I got involved with that group, and that's been a pivotal moment for me to switch from my career in television to lend my skills to the movements that I see that need to be successful in order for us to survive as a species. So I've dedicated myself to full-time activism. I work from my home in Toronto doing video and online media for different organizations, usually in the United States. And I've became familiar with Sailesh Rao because we were both, though at different times, members of Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corps. And we both had our roles in disrupting the training sessions that we were involved in. And I've been a friend of Sailesh. I asked him to come to Toronto, and he's been become a pillar in the community in Toronto. He's been back several times to inspire the activists in both the vegan and the environmental communities, and facilitating that intersection. So I'm pleased to be brought on this just as of November 1st as the projects coordinator for the BaseCamp. So I'm here to serve you. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ray. Oh my goodness. And so awesome to have you here. Absolutely love everything you're doing, and I'm so grateful. A friend of Dr. Sailesh Rao is a friend of mine, and it sounds like you're much more than a friend, and you're a major leader of this movement, and so you are much more than a friend to me. Thank you, Ray. All righty.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got so many wonderful ladies on this call. I just did a quick count. We've got more than twice as many women as men. So somebody please lock the door. All right. Speaking of which, my lovely sister, Jackie, Jacque, so great to see you, sister. Welcome, and please give us a nice intro to yourself, following on Ray's great lead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, Ray. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Jacque Salomon. Hi, everyone. Let's see, intro. I'm so bad at this. Okay, so I am co-founder of Seeds to Inspire.
I'm sorry, I seldom interrupt, but if something negative creeps in, especially my beloved sister, I just have to come in and do a quick intervention. You're doing perfectly, and your thing is, you're such a natural, sincere person that I can't imagine anyone doing it any better. Nobody does better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So again, I'll start again. So my name is Jacque Salomon. I am co-founder of Seeds to Inspire. It's a 501c3. It's a social justice education nonprofit. I am also co-founder of Align Life Coaching Services, where we do individual coaching into the greater community and help people realize their potential through changing lifestyles. And we go through a psycho-spiritual and a physiological approach to regaining health and balance so that people can actualize their greatest potential and choose the life that they want with intention. A little bit of my background is I worked with the ACLU. I was a parent leader with the Demand to Learn campaign. I am a certified climate healer. I am a World Peace Diet facilitator. I'm an HLLP level 1 certified coach, and I'm a conscious parenting method certified practitioner. So my passion is children, and veganism. The reason why I am full and both feet in is because I truly believe that veganism was that consciousness that brought me the connection of all of the social injustices that were happening. My life led me in directions where I was seeking healing of my body. I was dealing with the loss of a child. I was dealing with my children having special needs and being discriminated against school. I was dealing with physiological problems with the health of my family. I was dealing with being orphaned by a narcissistic mother that was not emotionally healthy. So all of these things were happening simultaneously. And so when I found veganism and found health and regained health, it was an awakening that you just never look at the world the same way again. You know, you can see all of the connections, and you can see the wisdom just starts pouring out of you with clarity and compassion, that you see the interconnectedness of it all. And once you're there and you gain that perspective, you kind of can't ever go back. So then it was like, what do we do with this wisdom, and what do we do with this knowledge? Well, now we go back and we help. And that's where Seeds to Inspire was born. I met Dr. Rao at the first ever Sedona Veg Fest, and he spoke about his vision and his promise to his granddaughter. And he had me, because my passion is children. Protecting the psycho-spiritual health of children, and so therefore infiltrating, I like to say that, infiltrating every ecosystem that children enter that affects their development. So our job is to go in there and protect all of these environments and ecosystems to make sure that children are in the right conditions. So we educate communities, we help our communities that are displaced, and we do projects like that to bring communities together in celebration and non-judgment. And we also sponsored and organized the Vegan World 2026 conference, and that was amazing. That's it. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Jacque, you know, like, I'm totally against animal cloning, but we got to clone you, Jacque, if you'll be willing. All righty. Love everything you're doing. So grateful to you for all your being and doing in the world. Wonderful. All righty. Carol is up next, followed by BJ, followed by Nancy. Take it away, Carol.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Carol Manetta, and I met Silas Rao years ago on an Indian reservation because his granddaughter, who is here, the reason he's in the Phoenix area, is part Native. And we just struck up a friendship that I have been vegan for 21 years, vegan organic, excuse me. And it was for health that I did that. I have since learned about the plight of the planet and animal agriculture and so on. So I'm an advocate. I'm executive director of a nonprofit called Reap Goodness. And what we are about to do is something that's not been done on the planet before. And that is forming worker-owned cooperatives, a trio of them, to function as a tour de force, if you will, to repair the earth. And we are going to be doing things such as water capture, rain capture inside earth using swales, and developing food forestry, and also reclaiming the waters in a variety of ways. Not only our streams and rivers, but also carving out the earth to create water for animal sanctuaries, and much more. Taking care of human waste and turning it into compost and using the waters to do that. So in effect, repairing the earth in a comprehensive way using 3 cooperatives that work separately or together. It's unique, and we're going to start with university students, 7 agricultural universities that we're approaching across the United States to do this as sort of a test. So the students will form mock worker-owned cooperatives on land that's been donated here in Arizona, which is desert land, and it has been allowed to be grazed by adjoining ranchers by the owner. So it's the perfect test site to transform it to something that is green and is going to be a ongoing food forest. And we're also then going to do it with a real set, and then we're going to go to 4 continents, the North America, South America, Europe, and Asia. And so it's very exciting. We're going to be doing this within 5 years. So keep us in your prayers, keep us in mind, and we'll keep you posted as to how we're going to progress on this. We're going to be developing the initial training. That's my field, is training development. Is it going to be in virtual reality, which is very, very simple to do today. Your cell phone can be made ready for virtual reality with a free app on Google Play. And from there, we can take this, and then all you need are the information files, so this can go anywhere in the world. And from there, we're going to turn the individual trainings for each of the 3 cooperatives into ebooks, and those are going to be translated into over 30 languages eventually. That's it. So it keeps me busy. I'm not sure how I'm going to be very helpful to you on this particular committee. I'm being invited into more having to do with Vegan World 2026, but because of the largeness of the program, I should say, it's a program, I'm not sure how much I can give, but I'll spend as much time as I can with you. I want to be kept up. I want to encourage you all. I love you all and all that you're doing. And Jackie, it's good to see you again. It's always good. Got to give you hugs soon, or I'm going to go into some kind of verklempt. All right, thank you.
Oh my goodness, so beautiful, Carol. And just as a quick interjection, I would love for us to embrace you and all you're doing with Collective Intelligence and invite you to join the Vegan Collective Intelligence community that we're building here. And because what you're going to find is, like, let's say you get together, normally you'd have, a Zoom video conference with 3 other people in your, in your organization, right? Bring us in. It's like you blow a whistle and 20 of us come storming in, but in a super compassionate way, right? Where we're here just to give and contribute to what you're doing. And it's always a 2-way street, right? And then the Vegan Collective Intelligence gets enriched by what you're doing, and vice versa. You have a lot more minds, right? There's a saying in Chinese, le che ba woman. I'm just kidding. I don't speak Chinese, but it goes, many hands make heavy work light. Okay? Many hands make heavy work light. Let's make light work of all that you've got to do. And let's do it in 1 year instead of 5 years. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much. So BJ is next, followed by Nancy, and then Dharmendra. Welcome, Dharmendra. And have you given a proper introduction on this venue before last week? Okay, so Dharmendra will be next after Nancy. Please take it away, BJ.
Great. Nice to see you here. Carol, I believe I may have seen you at the first Vegan World Conference. You look familiar to me. I've been a teacher for 20 years and tried to help the children understand about animals the best I could there. I've been a vegan 8 years. And I've been an activist, an animal activist. I first saw Climate Vegan video when you, Ray, taped Dr. Salish Rao during the European Union. I had seen him also seen a video of him speaking at the Paris climate talks. And I just watched the video again and again and again and started following him online, and then invited him to Austin, Texas. And he spoke, and now we have a chapter there. I'm just starting it, and we've got a few members now. So I don't know how much more what I can do here, but I know that I can help some, and maybe some can help me. Let's see, what else do I want to say? I have a group started in Lockhart. It's a little barbecue town, a little group of vegans to offer support and help transition into veganism. I'm looking forward to a vegan world and want to help any way I can. Yay.
Beautiful, BJ. Goodness, thank you so much for all you're doing and for being here.
Yeah.
Please keep coming. We need you here. All right, next up is Nancy, followed by Dharmendra. Take it away, Nancy. You're on mute, Nancy. Nancy?
Hi, sorry. I want to get more light on my face here, sitting in the dark. I do health education. I have a business called Botanic Cuisine, which is really a vegan outreach. It started out with vegan dining, and I just do a lot of vegan outreach with it. And I was at Vegan World last year and this year, and we were having this thing where we put a little Post-its up and all the topics we had to share, and collective intelligence just really attracted me like immediately. I thought, that sounds so cool. And I was right. So thank you, and that's enough. I live in Baltimore with 4 cats. That's all.
Beautiful, Nancy. So great to see you, sister. All righty. Dharmendra, please give an introduction to yourself. Take your time. Dharmendra is, oh my goodness. I'm speechless. Dharmendra, go for it, brother. You're on mute.
I know. It's I have so many different devices, so everyone is different to do this stuff, which is not really a good excuse, but anyway. So yeah, I'm Dharmendra. I like to say that I live with Amira, who's also got flying the vegan flag there. That's her little logo. That's who I live with. And I've known her for 47 years, and I love her. She's basically my great inspiration for becoming vegan in the first place. We talked about it for a while, and then one day she just said, we're going to do it. That was about 8 or 9 years ago. And she also, here in Mesa, where Jamin and I met about a month ago after he did the Climate Healing World Summit, and whatever it was, the vegan, it was all about a lot of different things. It was right here around the corner from where we lived, and we got to see most of it through Jane Unchained anyway. I'm also a vegan animal activist, and what I most bring to the table is the emphasis on the necessity of really accelerating our consciousnesses all together through the power of the collective energy field that we're creating, I guess is the best way I could put it. It's something that I have been, that is the accelerated collective evolution, as I like to call it, in support of radical collective intelligence. To me, it's all part of this. It's like looking at the same thing from a neighboring facet, literally the next facet over. It's not really that distinct from radical collective intelligence. I like to think of it in my heart as the same thing. But about 2.5 decades ago, I went through a certain process, and I won't get into the details except to say that I was put permanently in touch with essence, so that I never lost that connection since that point. Before then, for probably 20 years, I was very into meditation, and anything that could bring me to that place where I wouldn't lose touch with it. Because there were many experiences in my life that I had through meditation that were very profound and very moving, but at the same time, they didn't last very long. So until I had this one particular experience, which then for some reason I was never out of touch with that essence again. And then the neat thing about essence is it keeps evolving and transforming, and every time you go into essence, it's brand new. Even if you go into places that are familiar to places you've been to before, there's always a new nuance or something. And so what I want to bring to the table is based on also the vegan lifestyle is that it is the most, in my opinion, the very foundation of wanting to evolve consciousness, especially collectively, because it involves all of life and the deep respect for all of life. And to bring that as the basis, and then things like meditation are so much easier because you're already so much more sensitive, and you're already so much more I don't even, I'm going to try and create a new word here, intelligentized through the veganism. Your senses are more open, they're more sharp, they're more you're more aware, just everything, because once the meat and all those things get out of your chemistry, and it may take a little while for, as we all know, to literally, you may quit eating meat one day and quit using animal products and quit supporting animal exploitation. I mean, that's the true vegan, and it's the bigger concept. It's everything to do with animals, including humans. But it may take a while for your chemistry, for your body to catch up with that. But once it does, it's very easy to take on meditative awareness and to start using practices to deepen what the veganism is already bringing to the table. There was some discussion earlier today, and I'm just going to bring it up real quick, is that a guy who was convinced to go back to eating meat. And one of the things that I saw with that is that the thing about meat is it dumbs you down. So it's easy to convince people who especially if you're an expert. And people just, I don't praise experts personally. They like I say, they can be bought and paid for. It's just as easy as anything else. And then they're using all that intelligence to support a lie. And to me, that is the biggest. I mean, there was even a discussion at one point about plants poisoning you and all these things. And funny, what I took away from that discussion was that irregardless of how famous this fellow was, that this gentleman I was having this conversation with was, I felt there was some poison in that discourse of, it's better to, be convinced to eat meat. That's poisonous. There's something poisonous about that. Even if the expert on every single point he made is correct and he's very convincing, in the end, when you get to the veganism and you start to do the meditation, the whole point is, first of all, you have to liberate yourself from your own suffering. Yes, Jamin.
Oh, so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to just do a quick time check. It's almost 3:45, and we've got an agenda for the meeting. I just really wanted to. And actually,
see where and catch what I'm coming from, and I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, carry on.
No. But actually,
hi, nice to meet you all.
No, but actually, everything you've said actually feeds right into the first big agenda item. So it's actually perfect. It's totally perfect.
Okay, buddy.
All right, and so let's let's continue. I don't know if you heard what I said, Dharmendra, but everything you said was actually perfect for feeding into the next big agenda item. But let's get through the introductions first. So if you haven't given an introduction yet today, but you have before, give a brief introduction now. If you haven't given an introduction before on this medium, please give a longer introduction. And just jump in, whoever's ready.
This is Ann. I'm in South Florida. I was on the call earlier today also. I'm extremely grateful to be part of this group and to be with all of you, and looking forward to the rest of the call.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann. I'm Benjamin. This is Suzanne. We are both super into vegan collective intelligence, as well as veganism and collective intelligence separately. Really excited to be here with you all. Really grateful that you're all here with us.
I think we'll get into this when we talk about the agenda items, but Carol, when you mentioned you weren't sure how much time you had to contribute to this, I was immediately interested in what you're doing. I would love to be a liaison for you so you can be more involved in this, but maybe without the full time commitment, or, we can get creative with how to keep people involved. And I love what you're doing. And hi, everyone.
Wonderful, Suzanne. Goodness. Thank you so much. Love it. All right. More intros.
I'll give a quick intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Evan. I'm a 2-year-long vegan now, and really just loving this collective intelligence, vegan, compassionate, future train that we're riding now. I'm really, really happy to be here, and it's great to see all these people coming together like this. And just putting it in action. Yeah. So, thanks.
I am
Beautiful.
Debra from south of Houston, a longtime vegan, and helped Sailesh coordinate the online summit that happened before the in-person summit that Jacque helped with. So, and I'm looking forward to doing another one with him in March. And happy to be here.
Beautiful, Debra. All righty. Who else? And I know sometimes some people can't chat, so, or can't talk, actually, for whatever reason, but can type in. So jump in if you haven't given an introduction to yourself yet. Nolan, would you like to give an introduction to yourself?
Sure. Well, Jamin already said my name. My name's Nolan. Good to see all you guys. Super excited to see more new faces. How's it going so far?
Incredibly, phenomenally well. Just mind-blowingly well.
Awesome.
So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, me and Jamin first met good 2.5 years ago, and then reconnected about 4 months ago, and just kind of exploded. So now I've been talking in these conferences pretty much nonstop for the past 4 months. And I went to the University of Washington, studied computer science there. Love playing piano, singing, and mixing and mastering audio. And I'm newly vegan. So.
Awesome. Congratulations. Beautiful. All right. I just realized I haven't given a proper introduction on this. I mean, I give a very brief one, but more where I'm coming from. So I'm co-founder and president of radish.org, where we're pioneering radical collective intelligence. And of equal importance now to us as radical collective intelligence is veganism. And of equal importance to both of those is another thing called SRM, solar radiation management, right? So in our world, these are three giant things that we're co-evolving, and we I'm also program chair for the East Bay Sierra Club dinners that have been going on for decades. My dad was program chair going back to the early 1970s, so it's a bit of a legacy thing. And we've been transforming the dinners to be this platform for talking about all this. That's a whole other story. My partner Melissa and I are also doing a public art project in Pacifica, California. And welcome, Sarah. Get ready to give an intro to yourself, Sarah. In Pacifica, California, we're doing public art projects about climate change and the destruction of the coastline of California due to storm surges, sea level rise, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're really focusing on bringing all of this together into one big global movement, which I'm happy to talk about more on later, but I just wanted to give a proper introduction to myself. So if you haven't given an introduction to yourself on this call, like Sarah, please get ready to. If you've already given an introduction to yourself on last week's meeting, make this introduction short because we recorded last one as well. If you haven't given an introduction, make it a longer one. Okay. Sarah, you ready to jump in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hey everybody, it's me, Sarah, and I'm a full-time vegan activist and just got done with the first ever Animal Rights March in Atlanta, Georgia, which was Sunday. We had over 250 people for the first march, and on Saturday we also had the 9th annual Veg Fest in Atlanta up in the suburbs, and that was great. I filmed both for Jane Unchained, and that was great, and I was really glad to see everybody. And I also wanted to let you guys know that we're going to be having a big launch with Jane Unchained on Monday, November 18th. So tune in to her Voice America radio show at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be launching our cruelty-free, compassionate commerce shop for rescues. So shopforrescues.com. And we're urging people to change their behavior and stop giving Jeff Bezos so much money. So yeah, it's good. And we'll donate 20% of every single purchase to the charity of your choice. So it's really good, and no one's ever done this before. So that's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. All righty. Any other intros? So excited to see everyone here. Just wonderful. Sarah, you'll have to replay later the first part of the meeting. It's just been absolutely fantastic. Alrighty. Well, if you haven't given an intro, feel free to jump in at some point, even if you're not ready now. But no pressure. There's never pressure to talk on these forums. So you never put anyone on the spot and say, you have to answer this now. People can always take stuff and think about it. This is all part of this compassionate culture that we're creating within collective intelligence, which, along with what Dharmendra was talking about earlier, is a really kind of great intro to, this first big topic. We got two big topics to cover now that we've covered introductions. Envisioning vegan collective intelligence. What's it going to be, right? What do we want it to be? And then the second one is Ray will lead the second big topic, which is all the different teams on BaseCamp and how we kind of integrate them with collective intelligence, or how we offer collective intelligence to them, et cetera, and et cetera. So let's first go ahead and start with the envisioning thing. And I'll just, since I've got the mic, I'll speak for a minute or two, and then we can pass it around. And if there is a queue, that's fine. Just type your name into the chat window. That's if there's a lot of people who want to talk. You can just go ahead and type your name into the chat window if you want to be in the queue, and that gives us an idea who's waiting to talk. So the way I'm envisioning this is, imagine we have, dozens of different topic groups having regular video conferences on their topic, right? Let's say it's, ending government subsidies for the animal, for the meat industry, right? That's your topic, let's just say. And let's say you meet every couple of weeks, right? That would be one of dozens of topics, and we can go through the list later. I'll let Ray take care of that. We'll have dozens of topics with dozens of these video conferences going on, some once a week, some once every 2 weeks, some once a month. Some might be some fringe topic that happens once a quarter. I don't know, right? But whatever, right? But in general, all these conversations, these series of conversations and video conferences, which are recorded and transcribed, meaning that every word that comes out of anyone's mouth is now text in a document, right? Which can be published on the web and therefore indexed. And the gist of all that, I could go on and on and on, but the gist is really simple, actually. If you think of each of these different conversations or series of conversations, like my finger being like one of my fingers, and each of these being like a lane on a highway, but instead of a 4-lane highway, it might be, you know, a 100-lane highway, right? With all these different conversations happening in parallel. And of course, they all depend upon each other. It's an ecosystem of conversations. There is no one topic in isolation, right? Academia notwithstanding, right? You know, and so just like I could be on this video conference right now and then boop, 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 I get an urgent request for me to help somebody solve some problem that they can't solve without me. I might teleport into that meeting, change lanes, okay, help out there for 5 minutes and then come back. So what the vision I want to bring to this is just this network of conversations where there's just interactivity up the kazoo. And because of transcriptions, as tidbits are coming out of a given conversation that automatically answer an open question in a different conversation, the system can transport the answer and literally just put it up on the screen, you know, as sort of like a ticker tape, you know, information that's feeding your conversation. So we can build in all that kind of, you know, dare I say, artificial intelligence into it. But now that I've said the A word, let me just clarify that this is really about human intelligence and empowering this, exactly what we're doing right here, empowering this. With all the transcripts of all the conversations, people are going to be able to search, right? I sometimes use this kind of comical example to make a point, but let's say I'm new to this, I jump in, oh my goodness, there's, you know, hundreds of conversations going on in parallel. I wonder if anyone's talking about my favorite topic, you know, rutabaga permaculture on skyscrapers. I type in rutabaga permaculture skyscraper. Oh my goodness, lo and behold, there's a conversation happening right now in Indonesia about this. I click on the link, boom, thanks to automatic translation. My Indonesian is a little rusty, like my Chinese, but thanks to auto translation, I'm able to actually participate in the conversation. Wow. Anyway, that's my contribution to the vision. Let's think really, really big. And then while we're talking lanes on a highway, we may have 100 lanes in vegan land, right? Let's merge those 100 with another 100 lanes from SRM land, solar radiation management, right? You know, and merge those with another 200 lanes from the world of collective intelligence, another thing, right, unto itself. Yes, we're using it, but we're also developing it, right? And another 50 lanes of holistic land management, another 500 lanes of economic transformation, another couple hundred lanes of political transformation, another 1,000 lanes of transforming culture and story and spiritual transformation, et cetera, et cetera. You get my point, right? Basically, a United Nations of issues, of problems, of solutions, of you name it, right? But the vegan one, I can tell you, collective intelligence is kind of my bread and butter. I mean, I'm co-founder and president of radish.org, which has been my principal occupation for the last 5.5 years. I can tell you, of all the nascent collective intelligences out there, veganism has got the juice, right? We have got the heart, the soul, the spirit, the compassion, the love, right? We have an opportunity to lead the world of collective intelligence, set the example, set not the gold standard, but the green standard, right? And show them how it's done, not in an ego way, but, you know, and just somebody's got to lead this train, right? I'm not just going to meditate in the caboose and hope somebody, you know, starts up the engine. Somebody's got to lead this train. It's us, okay? Driving that train, going vegan. Casey Jones, you better lose that meat, you know? So anyway, Thank you. I'm going to go on mute unless no one wants to talk, but let's pass it around a bit. And let me see who's in the queue. We've got, someone had to jump off. Evan, oh, okay. Debra, okay. Debra had to, okay, thanks, Debra. Feel free to jump in the queue, or since when there's no one in the queue, feel free to just speak up. And even if you're not in the queue, you can always do a quick response to what anyone has said. So you don't need to be in any queue for that. How do you jump in the queue? You type your name. So I'm going to type in my name. You see how I just typed my name into the chat window? That simply means Jamin is in the queue. So Nancy, if you wanted to get in the queue, just type Nancy. Okay, that's it. Simple as that. Yeah. All right. But since there's nobody in the queue, BJ's in the queue. Take it away, BJ.
I'll unmute. Okay, so you're thinking so big and so broad, and all I can think of is very narrow. I'm working on a flyer. Somebody else is working on a flyer. Somebody else is working on a flyer. Let's get all these flyers together and make sure that they know about the white paper, or the #1 cause, or veganism, or this or that and the other. And also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the job transition thing that we worked on last year about helping people that work in slaughterhouses move to other jobs. And we got so far, and then we didn't get anywhere after that. But there's so many things like that that are more, definite goals and objectives. So maybe somebody can tell me how we tie it in, or maybe I don't even need to hear that, really. I can just wait and see, oh, Carol said something that I want to tag on to. Oh, Jamin said something that I can relate to, or maybe I can get some help from. Is that the way it's kind of, you're thinking of it?
All right. Well, Suzanne has, I think, a quick interjection. Go ahead, Suzanne, and Carol's in.
Yeah. I was gonna talk to that point, BJ. I think for me, I envision the Vegan Collective Intelligence group to be, so I guess I'll say my goal, and we can talk about what our goals are. My goal would be that it helps bring Vegan World 2026 about, or even early, if we can get the whole world vegan before then, but, and as we all become vegan and implement SRM solutions and, all sorts of solutions, but that'll happen. And this group is specifically for, I think, Vegan World 2026. So to that point, I'd love to talk about Ray's view in BaseCamp, how you can see all of the groups, and because I think that's already kind of self-organizing into our focuses, and then that would be kind of how we focus our attention on, like, are we making progress on Aquarius? Are we making progress on getting the white paper into various formats so we can talk to kids about it, so we can talk to teachers about it, so we can talk, so we can talk to different audiences about it. And the interfaith, are we making progress in all these groups that we've already identified?
And to add on to that, a way we could have tied this all together for now, just a way of thinking about it, is if a liaison is designated within each of these task forces to communicate, come back and communicate with us the progress that's being made within that group. If they don't want to start having conversations, or aren't big enough to start having conversations now, they could potentially bring somebody to a conversation that we're having, like this one, where we collect updates, exactly. And that would be one way to start, at least for now. Yeah. And then as we grow, the conversations will start taking place on their own, and yeah, it's only going to explode from there. But that's kind of how I see it playing out from here. I don't necessarily know how it plays out past that, but does that make sense, BJ?
You're on mute, BJ.
Thank you. I mean, I think I understand it better, both Ben and is it Suzanne? Yes. Thank you.
I think that was a good example, actually, BJ, that you're talking about doing artwork and handouts, and that's something that everybody's always asking about. I want information. I want to give information to people, and you've got some things that you're developing, and I think every group is going to want to have handouts of one kind or another. So knowing who is got the skills and the time to do those things, and it might require more people and more time, but I think that BaseCamp is going to work really well for that, because it's kind of at your speed. It's you can be as involved as you want. There's you can join one group or you can join several, and each group, each project, and each team has a fireside where you could just converse, just join the conversation, so you can dabble and just see what's going on in the group, and be as involved as you feel comfortable with. And a lot of things will be like, well, maybe I'll be interested in that, and then all of a sudden it totally ticks all your boxes, and you say, I'm the person that you need. You've been looking for this particular skill set. I can jump right onto that. So how many people are on the BaseCamp right now? Is there anybody that wants to get onto the BaseCamp? Because all I need is your email, then I can sign you up for it. And part of this process right now is I'll show you all the different categories that were created, I'm assuming by Sailesh Rao, to represent all the different questions that were written down in the conference. And I've started the process of copying all those conference questions and putting them into the appropriate category, deciding which are the appropriate category. And his choice of category seems to be pretty intuitive, because everything seems to be fitting so far. And I watched last week's meeting, and the list of different categories that I'm not sure what the origins of them were, but they were with the link, the YouTube video link to watch last week's meeting. I matched them up on BaseCamp in the Vegan Collective Intelligence group, and they all match up pretty well as well. So I don't think we're going to have too much trouble getting started with this. And as Jamin mentioned, we can always be adding groups. There's groups that may take a while to find leadership, and that's fine. That's all part of everybody sharing their experience and expertise. And we may not have anybody immediately for the veganic gardening group, but those people will come on, and we'll know people that would be the perfect person to be participating or leading those groups, and try to get them involved with our online think tank, which is how I've been describing it, as an online think tank that allows us to participate. That's showing up on the audio, isn't it?
Oh, well, I mean, it's great validation from the animal kingdom that you're on the right track.
What is BaseCamp?
BaseCamp's project management. Think of it as kind of an intranet that the software as a service. BaseCamp allows you to log into their webpage. So you don't really need to buy any software. You just log into it the same way that you do with Zoom. But it allows you to create projects and create a community where everybody's got an identity. Pretty much all you need is your email. And then you can share files, well, I mentioned there's a, what are they called?
Ray, can I interrupt?
Campfire.
Would you be willing to try to screen share right now so we could show Dharmendra?
Sure thing, because I just brought it up. Okay, can everybody see my screen right now?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very,
then to the home page of BaseCamp. This is just I just go and sign in. You probably will just sign in once, and then every time you type in. Well, usually the way I get in is I get notified of a message on my email, and then I'll say answer this message on BaseCamp, and then it'll automatically bring you to exactly to the page where that grabbed your attention or called for your input. So I've gone to my home page, and it shows you may have more than one project on BaseCamp. You might work with another organization that uses this system, and you don't need to sign out and sign in. You just have you'd have more than one project at the top of the list here. So I've got Vegan World 2026, and there's different teams in BaseCamp, and there's different projects. So it's mostly the projects where these all have been created. A few have been added, and you can see how many people are participating in them by the little dots with the names on them. And I've put little pins for the most commonly, the most populated projects to be sorted to the top. And Sailesh has created a lot of the different other categories, and has just put me and him as the participants in the group until we decide who to add as participants, and I think a natural leader will come out of each group. One of the ones I was added was the white paper study group. We were discussing both in BaseCamp and through emails that we needed a white paper study group because the white paper itself is pretty long, and it could be intimidating for some people. Most of the most important information is right off in the first sentence, the 87% of greenhouse gases attributed to animal agriculture. But there's different ways that we can deploy the information and just engage in social media, how to get this into as many hands as possible. And that could be involving graphics or handouts or things that can focus on one or two ideas from the white paper that might be of interest to different groups online. So if we look at them from the top, there's the Aquarius study group. If I click on it, I can see all the participants. I'm not sure if everybody can add and remove people, or whether that's something that they specifically have to ask me to do as one of the admins. I think at this point, Lash is also an admin. We'll see how much we need to get other people involved in adding and sorting people. Each project and team has a campfire, a message board, to-do lists, schedules, automatic check-ins. Those are, if you can set up repeating functions. So if you want to know what everybody's doing, what their plans are for the week, you can have an automatic question at the beginning of Monday. Or if you want a recap of what you accomplished during the week, you could have an automatic question that happens at the end of Friday. It's very customizable that way. I think they give you a few automatic ones, so you start to get familiar with it. And every project has a wealth of materials and media that's worth sharing. So there's docs and files, which keeps everything in this cloud-based system so that everybody's got access to it whenever they need to. One that we started with was the phone numbers of the participants in the Aquarius study group. You can also connect emails. There's important emails that may just be easier to link rather than to copy and paste everything as they come up. There's a chronology of the activity. So if you haven't been on in a while, you can check and see, okay, not much has happened, or a few things have happened, or this was something that I should have been paying attention to, and you can pick up and carry on. So these groups, I put into the Vegan Collective Intelligence group. So I think it makes sense that the people on this call, if we're in BaseCamp, we should all be in this group. We were calling it the project steering, the concept steering. I like this idea of steering because we're trying to decide which sort of topics need to be discussed. We may not be the expert. We may not even be involved in some of the groups, but we know that some of them need to exist, and we're sorting through our people and trying to find out who are the best and most excited people to be working on them. So if you're not here and you want to be here, just let me know. I can add you just by clicking on your email, and you'll get a notification. This one, not much conversation in the campfire for the Vegan Collective, but the master group, the Vegan World 2026, this should have everybody that's logged into this BaseCamp. I was going to say project, but that's separate. Who's logged into the Vegan World 2026 BaseCamp. And there's an ongoing conversation in the campfire, and it's very chronological. It's a stream of chatting, so you can kind of see a chronology of what's gone before. But of course, the most relevant stuff is the last few comments. We're discussing Sailesh on Mike the Vegan YouTube channel. If you have any questions for your group members, then it's easy enough to go onto the appropriate campfire and just have a little bit of a talk, pitch something up, run it up the flagpole, see who salutes it. Things that are a little bit more project-oriented and structured, the message board has an announcement here for that Benjamin's put this meeting, and it's invited everybody in Vegan World 2026. So everybody got notification that this meeting was happening today. And specific requests, somebody was trying to get in touch with Richard Oppenlander to get some of his slides. Hopefully, I think I did manage to help them with that. And a lot of conversation going on in this category. Let me go to one that's less. It's got a little less activity. So the message board is where I am pasting all of the questions from the Vegan World 2026 conference that were written on the dry erase boards. I'm pasting them all into these categories. And I might be about halfway through. I haven't got them all pasted into their appropriate categories yet, but we can see that the Taking Media to Account task force, which is one of the newest ones that was created on somebody's request. We got to point out all the places where everybody is saying the wrong thing and simply correct them. That's one of the handy things I learned from Al Gore. One of the takeaways was join the conversation and win the conversation as often as you can. Don't let all the misinformation survive uncontested. Of course, that was in reference to climate change denial, and his organization is just as guilty for animal agriculture denial.
Brilliant.
But and these are the sort of things that we might discuss on the media that NGOs aren't exactly media, though. We might actually create a group to discuss the things that aren't being said in Climate Reality Project, or Jamie, you said you had insight into the Sierra Club. They've had some really handy articles that they've written about animal agriculture, debunking. Oh, what's his name?
Alan Savory?
Alan Savory, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm actually part of the Sierra Club. I'm program chair of the East Bay Sierra Club dinners. So I organize the Sierra Club dinners. I organize the speakers, the topics, put all that together. And Dr. Sailesh Rao was recently our keynote speaker at a recent dinner on veganism. And the next one is on Pacifica on December 5th, where we bring all this together. That's a physical place where this is all coming together. But love what you're sharing here. And it's the ideas are really percolating. I just wanted to reintroduce a little perspective that what we're now experiencing is a really beautiful thing, and it's a back and forth. Ray, maybe if you want to stop sharing, we can all kind of see each other and get kind of reconnected, and then you can go back to sharing whenever you want. But this beautiful thing that I just referred to is this back and forth between talking about the vision and what can be and what currently is, right? What currently is what we've got on BaseCamp. And it's super powerful. Now we're basically mashing up BaseCamp with these other capabilities of collective intelligence, including Zoom, including automatic transcription, including indexing and search of those transcripts, including, subreddits on Reddit, where, we're basically just for every topic, there's just going to be this whole stack. We software geeks talk about stacks, like a stack of pancakes. You got your, machine language, you got your operating system, you got your applications, you got your add-ons, your, all kinds of stuff, DLLs, libraries, and all that. So I'm kind of getting back into the visioning thing, and it's great to go back and forth, right? This dialectic is super powerful. So I think, what I'd like to see just envisioning is, so for each of these groups that you've got there, Ray, and thank you so much for having such a wonderful handle on all that. Somebody's got to be, like I said, somebody's got to be the captain of the ship. And, you are the captain of the BaseCamp ship, as far as I'm concerned. Imagine that we then create a page, whether on BaseCamp or whether on our website. Maybe we create a website for all this. Happy to create a page on Radish to, as a default landing page or whatever. But, we can create our own website. Why not? Whatever we want to do, right? That's a detail. But what's not a detail is that we can, wherever that place is, we can have a menu of all the topics for which there are active video conference conversations, and then a menu of all other topics that haven't quite made the jump to light speed. Because once you get into this zone that we're in right now, this is light speed. This is the Millennium Falcon, after Han Solo banged the wall and it made the jump to light speed, right? We might as well call it the Harvey Wallbanger Club. But, the goal is that every topic that's worthy of being a topic and having a team on BaseCamp make the jump to light speed, and have someone leading and facilitating a regular series of Zoom conversations where we get together and talk about it. Parallel to that, imagine that this meeting right here, this steering community, is like a hub, okay, with links to every single other topic. Thanks to Ray, you are kind of that human linkage, and you've got it totally dialed in on your system there. And then imagine that at our weekly meetings of this nature, we have, let's say by default, 1 to 2 minute updates from each of the other teams. So, take a half an hour and just be really structured about it, time it. If we need to go deeper into a particular topic, we will, but not right now. Right now, we just need the 2 minute update. And I know that it's urgent, wait 30 minutes till we get through all the 2-minute updates, and then we go deep. And, and we'll have a whole process for creating the agenda and all that, right? I see thumbs up and people nodding and doing this, and that's super cool. So, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we are creating the world's first turbocharged, hyperdrive, hypersonic collective intelligence, and it's no accident that it's vegan, right? And imagine that, a vegan collective intelligence leading the whole planetary collective intelligence. I can't imagine a more compassionate, passionate, loving, wholesome, nonviolent, the kind of people I would want to send my kids to take care of my kids. I don't have any kids, but if I did, I'd want you guys to take care of them when I had to go do something. You know what I'm saying? These are my people. Welcome home, and welcome home. And if this is the home base, right, this hub and spoke model, yes, go do your meetings on, rutabaga permaculture skyscrapers, or on, taking, subsidies, removing government subsidies, actually creating government penalties, from government subsidies to government penalties, right, et cetera, et cetera. Come give your update. And then here, this is kind of like this steering community can then give it systematic feedback and contribution and hooking up. Oh my goodness, I didn't know you guys had this problem. We'll join your next meeting and help you out, right? And, if you're a collective intelligence junkie like myself, it's like, oh, shoot, there's Jamin again. I'm going to be on so many different meetings, right? Because as Nolan and I have co-discovered, when you're on this, and other people are discovering, when you get into this zone, the Zoom zone, right, where we're sharing, but it's not just through the platform, it's through this culture and this love and commitment and passion and compassion that we're all bringing to it, which is so beautiful. Anyway, Carol, I am so sorry. You've been in the queue for like a long time. And is there anyone else in the queue? Just either wave or speak up or type something in so we can be clear. If you want to be in the queue, just jump in. Carol, please take it away, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, first of all, I want to, I'm so thankful that you all clarified. Thank you, Ray, for taking us through this journey with BaseCamp. I needed that badly, as my emails to you have indicated. And so we had a mini tutorial, a really good one, an overview tutorial here. Also, Jamin, also about what you envision for this and why this is being called in the first place. Very important to have that kind of exposition, and so that we know why we're here. I was wondering why I was called here. Why am I here? Who am I and why am I here? And so this collective intelligence is now very, very intriguing, and it is very Star Trek-y. I love the idea. For a person who's going to be creating virtual reality training, you understand this is right up the alley, okay? And also I had there was a couple of mentions here about the children and developing the curriculum for children. We need to do that. There are children who are afraid they're not going to live very long today. This is a result, probably an unintended result of the children's climate strikes, but we need to do that so that they have a firm idea of what a vegan world will look like, their place in that world, what they can do to contribute to that world. And I will give you one example. I had the good fortune meeting just yesterday with a teacher of first graders, 6-year-olds, who received a $7,500 grant to study erosion about a lake in Idaho. And these children were given binoculars to study what do you call it? Don't get old, anybody. This is a beaver lodge that had been abandoned, and also to study what the outcomes are. And this is called project-based learning. And from this project, the math teacher, the reading teacher, and all the other teachers are doing satellite. This is exactly what you're talking about, Jamin. Satellite learning from the project, the real world project of the degradation of Earth, but done in a way that the children understand. I'm going to be staying in touch with her, of course. She's a daughter of a very good friend of mine. And to expand on this, I want to give light to it. I want to bring attention to that. This is a forum to do that so that other teachers then can pick up on this. It's long overdue as a form of training. of teaching in the classrooms. And we can expand on that with the veganism in a way that is sensitive to children's emotions, and do this because it's their world that we're working for. It is. Okay, so that's all I have to say. I'm done, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thanks again for your patience. Just some quick comments in the quick comment realm. I don't think anyone's in the queue right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, or jump in the queue if you want to be. I just want to take one quick moment, or a minute or two at the most, and kind of fly out in space for a moment, and then we'll come right back down to Earth, and then right back down to the ground and grounding. And then I'd like to pass it back to Ray whenever he's ready to go back into BaseCamp, and then we start making this specific. But first, a quick trip to outer space. Okay, so we've got this vegan collective intelligence, right? And it's super awesome. Okay, great. In parallel, we've got a solar radiation management, SRM collective intelligence, led by Dr. Ye Tao of Harvard University, who's brought together scientists from Europe and the Americas, and is doing an amazing job leading a collective. Well, he and I co-created this collective intelligence for SRM. So we got a collective intelligence for veganism and a collective intelligence for SRM. Now, collective intelligence, meanwhile, is its own thing. The platform, the culture, all these different aspects that we're talking about today. We've created a collective intelligence for collective intelligence itself, if that's not too recursive for you. We're in conversation stages about putting together collective intelligences for holistic land management, arcology, economic transformation, political transformation, cultural, spiritual, and mythological transformation, a federation of coastal communities who are all getting hammered by climate change, led by Pacifica, California, where we're doing this big project, concentrated around the month of February, but it'll happen before, during, and after February 2020. And so we have all these different collective intelligences, right, on all these different, I'm just going to call them mega topics, right? Veganism isn't just a topic, it's a lifestyle. It's a mega topic, it's a hyper object. So you got all these different hyper objects for which we're forming different collective intelligences. Now imagine a United Nations of collective intelligences on all these gargantuan hyper objects, right? Where we break out of the old mold of, no, veganism is the answer, screw you. No, SRM is the answer, screw you. No, it's all about a carbon tax, screw all of you. No. And it becomes this competition for who's got the answer. I've got the answer. No, I've got the answer, right? And it just brings us right back into this state of rivalry. So what we're literally talking about here is going in precisely the opposite direction to unity, to sharing, to synthesis, to compassion. And if a carnivore shows up, we're compassionate with them, right? Just like a heroin addict. We don't say, well, shame on you for using heroin. You only think about yourself and your own pleasure. God damn you, give it up. Now, whoa. They're going to run and hide and never come back. So, let's create not just a culture for the vegan collective intelligence, which is kind of there out of the box, right? For the most part, but let's create a culture for the United Nations of collective intelligences on all these gargantuan hyper objects. And I'd like to offer up that SRM, veganism, and collective intelligence itself as a hyperobject, these three, we form this green triangle, right, of these three, and start the United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects. We're gonna have to come up with a slicker name than that, I'm afraid. But oh, that makes sense to me. Okay, so United Nations of collective intelligence. Okay, so but let's take the lead and show the world that this is more than a bunch of hippies with long hair growing organic rutabagas in their backyard and being proud that they're vegans, right? No. This is something much bigger. This is about saving life on Earth, right? and we show a united front and put out a call, a planetary call to all other collective intelligences, all other groupings that are intelligently run and compassionately run and with a big vision about something. It could be about, parenting. Jacque is taking the lead on that, right? Go Jacque. And, form a multi, billion, community of parents and kids and families. Why not? Sky's the limit. And then, connect it up with, and then bring it to the United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects, right? Anyway, I'm going to go on mute. Let's see if anyone's in the queue. Let's see. Okay. BJ just wrote, just what I needed to hear, Jamin. I keep wanting people to see ag as the #1 culprit, but then want them to be a part of us. Beautiful. And let's see. Someone also asked, how did the Sierra Club dinner go with Silas? Was it a vegan dinner? Yes, it was a vegan dinner. Small footnote, the caterer brought butter and, okay. So, but you get my point. Everything else was vegan.
That's a great story, though. You got to tell how the second dinner came about.
The second dinner?
Well, Silas is going back, isn't he?
Well, actually, no. He's been twice. The first dinner was, the main keynote speaker was Dr. Matthew Fox, the prominent, who many people know about. But anyway, but I also invited Professor Guy McPherson and Dr. Silas Rao to also, speak for shorter periods of time. And then we had a big collective intelligence gathering at the end of that dinner. So, but then the second dinner, he was the sole keynote speaker, and he had the whole evening to himself, and it was a vegan dinner, and it was phenomenal.
But somebody brought butter?
The caterer brought butter, right? The thing is, it wasn't a vegan caterer. We used our same caterer as always, and we said, look, here's how we're going to do it this time. We even lined up Swami to be the vegan entree provider, Laika. But anyway, so I'm just making a footnote for history correctness sake that, we kind of screwed up on a couple of little details, but anyway, the short answer is it was a vegan dinner, but more to the point, it was an amazing gathering and conversation and collective intelligence. And, so, Silas and I have been mixing it up on Zoom video conferences, Sierra Club dinners, the vegan, and so it really, we just have this beautiful coming together of these different collective intelligences, because SRM needs the vegan community to actually happen and be successful and be phenomenally successful. And the vegan community needs SRM to help cool the planet, not to do the job all by itself. But it's just I sometimes make the analogy, we've got this burn patient who's just, the body temperature is like 112 degrees and they're just burning up and cells are dying and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of things we need to do to that patient, but the first thing we need to do is dunk that patient in an ice bath and get the body temperature back down to livable. Okay, now that the patient is alive and breathing, okay, ointment galore, serum galore, therapy galore, right? But the first galore, the first hyperobject is SRM. Right. And I also make the analogy. It's like, if there's a whole bunch of problems in a particular household, family problems, sibling problems, school problems, work problems, financial problems, plumbing problem, a whole bunch of different problems. And one of them is that the house is on fire. Which one are you going to solve first? You're going to call 911, fire department, put out the fire, get the kids out of the attic, and then go about addressing all these other things. That's where I position SRM. It's the immediate fire department that will immediately cool the planet, right? Not in 10 years, not in 20 years, not in 5 years, but like as soon as you do it. And we just got to do it. In a nutshell, what is SRM? It's about putting literally millions of square miles of reflective material strategically located on different parts of the face of Mother Earth, mostly in the oceans, which are absorbing 90% of the photons which land on them, heating the planet, right? putting floating mirrors, vast arrays of floating mirrors. I mean, millions of square miles. I'm not joking. I mean, it's literally that much. And so with the floating mirrors reflecting that sunlight that would have absorbed by the blue ocean seawater and heated up the planet, reflecting them back into space, so they don't cool the planet to begin with. Right? There's two ways to cool a planet. One is to reduce the blanket of greenhouse gases encircling the planet. The other is to do SRM. SRM goes all the way upstream and says photons denied. Don't even go into the basket in the first place. Don't even add to the heat load in the first. Just go back to space. Landing rejected, back to space, boom, deflected back into space. The other is, okay, all the photons that made it and started heating up the planet, how do we reduce the blanket of greenhouse gases so that energy can dissipate, however slowly, but dissipate back into space, mainly through infrared, right? Those are the two ways to cool a planet. The reducing of greenhouse gases is simply going to take time. We're emitting like crazy, burning like crazy. We're just on this omnicidal streak. The deflection of photons can be immediate. As soon as you roll out the mirrors, they go to work immediately, right? And and we've got the industrial capacity, we've got the logistics capacity, we've got the engineering companies, the shipping companies, the marine engineering companies, the technology to roll out millions of square miles of reflective material. Anyway, Dr. Yetow of Harvard is the lead scientist and, technical visionary on this. He's a physicist like my Uncle Frank, who was on the last meeting, but he is very focused on this, has a beautiful vision for it. Please watch the SRM meeting that's on my YouTube channel to learn more about that. But we need to join forces. This needs to be like the Lord of the Rings, where the elves and the dwarves and the hobbits and the humans, we come together and say, let's do this. Right? We humans were pretty good with a bow and arrow. Okay, great. Go on that hill and shoot the orcs from there. All right. The elves can just take them head on and do whatever magic. Great. Go for it, elves. So SRM and vegans unite, and collective intelligence unite. This is what's happening right here is really the unification of collective intelligence and veganism. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for taking this trip out to space with me. I wish I had Nancy's background for the trip, but Nancy's here. Holding space for us. Thank you for that. And, back to Ray, back to whoever is ready to talk. Let me see if anybody's in the queue. Okay.
I was just going to say, you promised you're going to bring us back down to the ground, but I'm still way out here in outer space.
Anyway, super cool stuff, everybody. Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I have to go, and I want to say I love you all, and I can't wait to talk with you again. Take care, everybody. Love you. Thank you so much.
Love you, Carol. Thank you so much for being here, sweetie. Thank you. All righty. And Nancy says, I'm actually lying on my couch. So you're couch surfing through space. I think Nancy's got it made. All right. Okay, and Ray's got some good stuff he's been putting up there on the chat window. Okay, great. We got a video to help us get a primer on BaseCamp 3. Awesome.
If there's any way to copy the transcript from the chat window at the end of this video and add that to our, I think, the message board on BaseCamp.
How about we do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I think so. Okay.
There's a save chat button down at the bottom where it says more.
Cool.
I clicked on it, but I don't know what happened. It says it's saved.
Oh, save chat.
Okay, well, I've just verified that. So as the organizer, I get a transcript at the end of every recording.
Okay, that would make it easier. There's no way for me to just copy it.
Not that I know of, but look, if you can copy it, I'm not trying to hoard the information. I actually do the opposite in life: is broadcast everything and share everything. But anyway, go for it. But the salient point is we programmatically and systematically get text transcripts of all recorded Zoom conferences. Okay. And so let's take those. That's just the chat transcript. That's separate from the voice transcript, which we're just in the process of about to bolt on. which will just create automatic text transcripts for all the meetings that we have, which I say we publish both the chat and the text and the video, everything, publish it all, right? And that way people can do searches and find that niche group doing rutabaga permaculture skyscrapers, right? And changing the world in their own little way that way, all the way up to the big SRM and vegan groups, right? We are creating the world's first planetary collective intelligence as a systematic, programmatic revolution of spirit. It's a spiritual transformation. It's a revolution of love, of compassion, of hope, of caring, of sharing, of collaboration, of cooperating. BJ, to you.
Did we, and I didn't want to interrupt that flow there, that was going good, but did we get to the agenda items? Did Ray get to say what he was going to say? Because you said something about it at the front. He talked about BaseCamp. Was there anything else there, Ray, that you wanted us to know about groups? For instance, when I look on mine, I see the BaseCamp groups that I'm signed up to, but I don't see the potential ones anywhere that I might want to sign up to. And
yeah. I talked to Salesh about that. He suggested a Google survey. I think that's what he said, that give all the different categories that we've got thus far and let people know what's available for them to sign up for. And we've got the two lists. We've got the list that was mentioned last week, which I've put onto a message on our...
Feel free to screen share, Ray, and just share it.
So this is the link that was given to me for the last week's video. So I took a note of who was in attendance. And in that list that I guess it was that Jamin saved, shared with us, that has all the categories in regular font, and I've added the corresponding group or groups that I saw from the BaseCamp.
Beautiful.
So there's pretty much a correlation for each of them. And there's a few more BaseCamp groups that didn't have a category here, but there were more specific things. One other thing I can mention about, it kind of touches on two topics that I was thinking of. I said, I asked Salesh, what are the criteria for people to be involved? Do we just invite anybody? Do we try to decide if, like, you can invite people that you kind of know, they clearly are an expert in this kind of a field. Do they have to be vegan if it's part of a vegan project? And he said, well, no, because obviously non-vegans hanging out with vegans talking about vegan stuff for a long enough period of time, you kind of get infected with that kind of. So somebody said they didn't want to use viruses as an example last week, but it is very infectious.
It's the story of my veganism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, usually it's proximity to other vegans that gets people to be very, very enthusiastic about it. There is one other option. If you're involved with an organization that isn't really keen on veganism, but you see how they have got something important that they can contribute, there is a function in BaseCamp where you can invite people as a client. So and of course it also applies if somebody's got a particular skill set, but they're not really going to join the conversation as a whole. You can add them as a client, and then they've got access to certain parts of the meeting. I tested it out on my wife. She's got a catering business, so we decided that I would add her, the Veganabler, as a client to see how that works within BaseCamp, and created a group called was originally called Never Buy This Product Again, but now it's called Normalizing Vegan Food. So, of course, food always has to have something to do with the vegan transition, right? Just having good food is sometimes just all you really need. So I created a task force and included in it, I don't see them here. She was included as a client. Okay, so she's not included in the regular list. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. That there are levels of involvement, that you can invite some people who, and they might be just to try them out with the group. I wanted to talk a little bit about these teams because I find this intriguing that Sailesh has created these categories. So there's the projects that have particular outcomes that we're trying to achieve, but we have these teams which are more roles rather than specific projects. And these are terms taken from I became familiar with them from a TED Talk by Debra Graugnard, who has identified these systemic change and all the different roles that people play in that transition. And I came across it and I became very intrigued with it because I saw in the vegan community in Toronto, there was certain times where people were creating a lot of infighting because they had the idea that there was a certain way to do activism. There's a certain sort of attitude that everybody should have. And it seemed to me that they're trying to, streamline a personality of activism that is so narrow-focused, it doesn't really reflect what you would expect of a worldwide movement. I understand that there's, every voice for every set of ears. We need a wide variety of people spreading the message, and they won't all necessarily be saying exactly the things that you want to hear. There's people who have, is anybody familiar with Vegan Gains? He's a big YouTuber. He lives in Toronto, and he has a habit of rubbing people the wrong way because he's got a really rough style of conversation and kind of an attitude that is abrasive, and a lot of people find it off-putting, but he has such a following that is their mode of conversation. And a lot of, especially younger people, gravitate towards it. And I'd say probably half of his followers are haters. So it's obviously a very important forum for certain topics that revolve around veganism. And there's lots of activists that would love to have something a lot more nuanced and a lot more friendly and love-based. And that, of course, is important too. But I wanted a way to express that we need all kinds of activism, and we can't really do too much narrowing down of tactics. Some people are going to be those loud activists, and some of them are going to be the quiet activists. Some of them are in it for the long game, the long conversation, the coffee chats, and frequent visiting with somebody that they're vegan projects. That's usually our family members that you got to play the long game. And some are just more tuned to that short game of introducing people to veganism for the first time, sometimes a bit shockingly. The model that she presents in her TED Talk involves curves of systemic change. So every system is born, it exists, it peaks and declines, and then eventually ends. You can't take a system as broken as most of our systems have become and just tweak them into working. And she uses examples like peak oil, or our education system is, it's become obsolete. Our methods and our thinking worked really well a long time ago, and they're not working now. So we have to think about the new thing. So there's a curve that represents the status quo, and then there's a new curve that represents what's going to replace it. And of course, that's something that we've got to visualize for the future and work our way back from that. But in the meantime, we have the status quo that as it reaches its peak, it starts to experience this turbulence. That's why it's got all these wavy lines here. And there's different roles that, this happens on its own. This turbulence is something that just happens naturally in every cycle. I would say the dairy industry is a good example of a system that's experiencing turbulence because it's just outlived its usefulness and is frankly quite easy to replace. So that turbulence happens. There's some people that stay within the system and may be helping that turbulence to happen. And the most important thing that needs to happen is there needs to be alternatives to the status quo. And she expresses it as a bunch of dots that are in the space in between the two curves. And the dots each represent some form of activism. Activism is generally outside of the status quo. You're fighting against something that's built into the system. I'm not sure if she intended this, but I kind of think of it as the dots that are closer to the status quo are the ones that are, just taking a little bit of a step out of the status quo. Things like animal welfare is, I would say, still in the status quo. They may be trying to solve the comfort issues of animals that are still going to be slaughtered for food. It is sometimes, many people, it's their first step into observing the suffering of animals, their first step towards activism. And of course, the treatment of pets and so forth is a welfare issue that I would consider within the status quo of animals. So as people step out of the status quo, and she has a book called Stepping Out, Moving On. I can't remember the name of the book now, but essentially, it's important for everybody. All of us as vegans have stepped out of the status quo, and that's one of the advantages of veganism over any other, proposed system of, reduce the amount of meat that you eat. It's not really a movement as such. It's not. It's certainly within the status quo. Meatless Mondays would be within the status quo, but maybe right on the edge. Veganism is stepping out of the status quo and saying, I don't need this particular part of society in my life. And it's such a huge thing to step out and be able to turn around and see the status quo for the first time. And I mentioned in the comments, Dharmendra was talking about the clarity you see as a vegan. There's so many aspects of life that have to do with the status quo that has blinded us. And it's this one little way that we could have an awakening. So the most important thing, the thing that really resonated with me is that these spots either exist so close to the status quo that they would get absorbed into it. The status quo recognizes its threat and it wants to survive, and it'll do anything to survive. We have a huge job ahead of us because this, no matter how much turbulence this is creating, that just creates a sense of panic, and you have agricultural systems that demand more subsidies from our government so that they can survive. And backlash against veganism. So there's also dots that are far away from the status quo. They're more radical stuff like animal liberation, where most people would say, yeah, that's not going to happen ever. So they're more radical solutions that just kind of live on their own. They would just be irrelevant. It's when you have a whole bunch of solutions in the middle that these become an alternative to the status quo that creates this turbulence, that brings about the end of the status quo. It's only when we have a network of like-minded people, but they're doing all sorts of different things that, I mean, they're not too like-minded. They have all got their specific agenda. And some of them, nobody's heard of Gary Francione until you've become a vegan. He's kind of creates an argument of where are you supposed to be in the spectrum, and everybody has to decide where their activism lies. That's something that is obviously a stepping stone. You might be involved in animal welfare, you might move out and decide it's not enough and become more radical. All these alternatives to the status quo exist, and this one's probably the most important to us. One of them is going to win. One of these is veganism. And we're pretty sure that this trail to the new system is going to involve a liberation of animals. So no matter how radical the idea of animal liberation is, if that's what this new system is all about, that's what's going to happen here. And all these systems are going to be helping that. So the roles that Sailesh has created in the teams were listed as illuminators, and I think he's put everybody into that category. Anybody that's in the BaseCamp is in the illuminators group, or maybe we'll just automatically put everybody in there, because we are showing the way to the new system. I think that Sailesh himself is the trailblazer. He's come up with these concepts of how this is coming about, but there are other trailblazers as well that are thinking about our new systems and how they are going to replace the old systems. The people that can take that systemic view of our problems and realize how to get from here to here. There are protectors that exist within the status quo, and they'll protect the people who are trying to break out. Usually those are people that are putting money into projects that keep the activism going. I've been employed by a few foundations that dedicate their it's got to be millions of dollars to keep the broader projects of animal rights and environmentalism that fights back against this system that's trying to protect its agricultural systems. As this decline happens for the old system, we have illuminators that are going to show the path to this new system. So that would include, animal farmers learning how to be land farmers, or veterinarians for the animal agriculture industry getting new jobs that are future-proofed and something that they'll be able to do, and businesses that they'd be able to hand on to their children when they retire. We don't expect there will be many dairy farms that will be handed off to their children. We have to figure out how to convince them that the government isn't going to take care of them forever. And right now they believe very much that the solution to everything is to get more support from the government and protection. It's kind of tragic for them to be listening to those people, because we know that this is a system that's dying. And if they wait until it's too late, and any system change is going to have its casualties. There's some people that will not be able to make this change. And this is where the hospice workers come in. And they are people that are going to be, just trying to get people into the new system, but knowing some of them aren't going to make it. Some of them are going to be too old to be retrained into a new system, and just kind of have to limp along until retirement. It's hard to guess how many kind of scenarios might come out of the system, because it's not something that we've ever done at this kind of magnitude before. And obviously I'm talking about a system, a status quo that involves exploiting animals, to one that doesn't. There are many of these curves that are happening simultaneously. Of course, there's curves of exploitation of people, of workers, of people of different races, of nationalism, where certain securities of developed nations are built upon the almost like a yin yang, that the more comfort that we have, we're causing some sort of discomfort in some other part of the world. all these systems are happening and changing at the same time. And whether we like to live in times of excitement or not, we've landed in it. We've got a convergence of technological breakthroughs that improve our lives and make them miserable and give us opportunities that we've never had before. A lot of the curves, like the civil rights movement, didn't have the benefit of the internet. We have the internet now, and that may be something that is a game changer, where we're able to unite in ways that have never been possible in the past. So this TED Talk by Debra Graugnard, I highly recommend people have a look at it. I think I put a link on this page, but I'll share the link as well. She does a few other talks for corporations where every corporation has different kinds of change that they need to accomplish, whether it's dealing with peak oil or some sort of change from a paper system to a paperless system. But it's something that we should discuss, and I've been meaning for years to animate this, and I think I'll probably have the opportunity with this project to do that with Sailesh, because he's taken these groups, these teams, and I don't know, maybe you can imagine yourself as being the kind of team player that would be a hospice worker, that would be able to recognize those points, those pain points that our system is going to have as we go from one system to another. I'll let anybody jump in now if you've got any comments.
Incredible, Ray. I love it. I mean, it's kind of like something that we all knew all along, but didn't know that we knew it. And now that you put it in these terms, which is kind of like how Benjamin has described collective intelligence. It's like, oh my God, it just resonates. It's like, that's it. That gives us a map. Now imagine, each of those red dots being, specific movements, or I forget what you called them, transitional movements or whatever, right? Now imagine a collective intelligence swarming around each of those red dots. But all those collective intelligences talking to each other. That's this United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects, right? So that's all. So imagine a swarm of collective intelligence around each red dot, and each of those swarms has a hub and spoke model, just like the vegan collective intelligence. We're the hub, right? And then each of those hubs is connected to all the other hubs through, in turn, a hub and spoke model, where the main hub is the United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects. Anyway, back to you, Ray, and everyone. Going on again. Thanks. But this gives us a map. This gives us the overall map, and therefore where we need to swarm with, where we need to add collective intelligence to, and boom, connected back to the mothership of the United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects. Yeah,
and it speaks to your earlier comments about the need for us to work together, even if we don't see the solution. There's one trailblazer in this diagram, but really what it is, this is animal liberation. This is all the win-win-win-win situation where you know that veganism solves all these problems, but they kind of exist in their own little realm. And I think even as a founding member of Climate Vegan, it was clear that it's not a vegan movement unless it's about the animals. If it's a bunch of environmentalists that are saying, yeah, we got to do something because I think the human race is in danger, they have to recognize that there's mass extinction of species happening right now. That one organization that I worked for was an animal welfare organization, a CEO of a large dog and cat rescue organization, who was wondering why they had to keep putting down all their work and rescuing animals from floods They started rescuing thousands of animals during Hurricane Katrina. And then more hurricanes started happening, and they're saying, this is just ridiculous. It's happening so frequently. This climate change thing has got to be real. So we have to reach out to our network of 8,000 animal welfare organizations. Every town has its own little SPCA and Humane Society. We've got a database of them all. And we came across this newspaper, this magazine article that said that the Animal Welfare Organization, remember I mentioned them, they're still there in the status quo. Animal rights would be somewhere outside of the status quo, but the animal welfare organizations have an 85 public approval rating. That's like unheard of in most sectors. But people love animals. People really do love animals, even when they're eating them. So they love their pets, and they don't want to know about what's happened to any of the other animals, but they do have a compassion that's there and willing to put lots of money into animal welfare organizations. So we tried to convince those organizations to spend a little bit of that public trust and make it a vegan baseline in your organization. You don't have to, all the employees don't have to go vegan, but you should have a baseline. Any catering that you do within your organization, make sure it's vegan. And explain to everybody why, because everybody's going to go, well, you're a dog and cat rescue. Why are you serving vegan food? Explain to them why. They will ask, and you will explain. And this is the way that the transference of information and the transference of feeling gets to the ears that need to hear it. It's so quiet. Does anybody see themselves, or do they know people that would be protectors or illuminators or hospice workers? We know the trailblazers. They tend to be the ones that are getting the headlines.
I was going to say, when I agree, I think Sailesh Dr. Rao is a trailblazer, but I also think Jamin is a trailblazer with, with everything, with the whole collective intelligence movement, with CCC, with a lot of your ideas. I think you're paving the way and helping us then come on board and be illuminators too.
Absolutely. The people that have that systemic thinking, that the ability to take that 30,000-foot view of problems and say, wow, everybody's, picking at all these little details when the system is very clear, and the things that are preventing it from succeeding are very clear as well.
Yeah.
So that makes an awful lot of sense, yeah. And there's a lot of us, like I'm a video editor by trade and a communicator by training, and that is a clear skill set for an illuminator. And I've been, spending the last few years going, look at what Sailesh is doing. This is amazing. And you're probably going to find something for to be some way to be involved in this great thing that's happening, because he's got this idea, and it's very contagious.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of opposition, people trying to stop us too. So there's people in our society who may not seem like they're in step with us. There's Leonardo DiCaprio, who we kind of cheer him on, and then he backslides a bit, and he won't come out and say if he's vegan or not. And we'd love to have him, spread the word and help normalize that connection between environmentalism and veganism. But he's there in the status quo. He's part of that system that created him. And usually these are people with a lot of influence and a lot of money. And sometimes those are the ways that they can help the movement more than if they, quit what they're doing and become obscure activists like us. money is still part of the system. I think that part of the transition to new systems would involve something other than the capitalism that we've created for ourselves. Most people say it's ending capitalism. Sailesh had some interesting perspectives on how to constrain capitalism to our environmental footprint, which is another one of those trailblazer ideas. Why do we can combine trailblazer ideas? Another trailblazer would be E.O. Wilson, who said, give half of the earth back to the animals. There, you've got your biodiversity problem solved. Now just figure out how you give half the earth back to the animals. And he's charted his maps of how you would break up the planet and say these are the migratory patterns. So you'd need to have these north-south patterns of land that you give back to the animals. But to accomplish that politically, it's going to take a lot of work. So do we partner with that vision? It's not a vegan vision. There's indigenous people on North and South America that are certainly partners with environmental movements. They're not necessarily in step with the vegan movement, but they're certainly have objectives that are similar. And sometimes they need to, you need to have that proximity for a while before you start to realize the things that you have in common. One that is kind of sifted out is that I think animal agriculture is no friend to First Nations in North America, especially. And right now, no friend to First Nations or indigenous people in the Amazon. I mean, I think we clearly witnessed the aspiring agriculturalists setting fires to the Amazon in support of President Bolsonaro on the day of fire. I had a fight with my cousin about that. She said, they're not setting fires. It happens every year. And I said, it happens every year, and it's worse this year. We just had the election, and on January 1st, he said that he was going to monetize the Amazon. And now, surprise, surprise, it's on fire worse than it's ever been.
Yeah, when you talk about bringing all these different, movements and groups, First Nations, federations of First Nations groups around communities around the world, et cetera, with veganism, with SRM, with collective intelligence, with so many other things. That is the United Nations of collective intelligences of hyperobjects. And so when we talk about this swarming around the different red dots on the map, each of those is a hyperobject. Each of those collective intelligences is a hyperobject, right? It's a collective intelligence of that specific hyperobject represented by that red dot. Or it could be, the hyperobject could be this whole gray trajectory, or this whole bright green trajectory, or it could be the illuminator community, right? It could be anything, right, that you can put into words and say, hey, that's a thing that's worthy of a conversation. If it's worthy of a conversation, it's a hyperobject. And if it's a hyperobject, it needs to have a collective intelligence, right? So we're basically infusing or injecting this virus of collective intelligence, right? This spreadable, communicable virus called collective intelligence to all these different hyperobjects, right? And then saying, join the United Nations of hyperobjects, of collective intelligences of hyperobjects. And that's where it all, literally where it all comes together. And where we then get to see through their eyes. We get to see through the eyes of the First Nations, the federation or community of First Nations around the world, First Nations communities. They get to see through our eyes. We get to see through the eyes of Alan Savory and holistic land management, right? Anne said it great on our last meeting earlier today, that, hey, bring on, holistic land management, just don't eat the animals. Just don't kill them and eat them, for crying out loud. Yes, let them graze, let them perform their ecosystem services, but don't chop off their heads as their, punishment for doing the right thing. go give them a hug as their punishment, as their, reward for doing the right thing. Don't chop off their head. Hey, thanks so much for helping restore the ecosystem. Off with your head. Anyway, you get my point. So bring them all together. Let's see each other's perspective. And that's where we're able to come with to like a synthesis of what I just quoted that Anne had said.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
As I mentioned, there's many of these curves happening in simultaneously and they're all in different phases. I mentioned dairy. I think dairy is much further ahead on this curve. And I think it's an industry that we can watch how it dies and learn from it, because we've got these other industries that are going to have to be put down. And I think dairy will go on its own, but I think beef is one that's we're going to have to really work at creating that turbulence in our society, because we're not only so enamored with it in North America, we're prepared to sell it to the rest of the world. Even if the developed world became vegan, they will still continue to sell to the rest of the world, because that demand is rising. Now, I'm hoping that process of growing the vegan movement in North America is resetting that example of what middle class consumption, redefining it, setting the bar in a different place, because we see that is exactly what is happening as middle classes are emerging in China and in Africa. They are demanding more and more. In Africa, it's a lot more eggs and dairy, and in China, it's more and more pork, and they're starting to get more and more into beef. And it's clear why. You see the spread of McDonald's to all these countries, and all of a sudden they want beef. This is the thing to prove that you're middle class, that you eat like an American. So we need to redefine what it is to eat like an American, and what it is to be a middle class consumer. And that doesn't stop at food. That goes to all of our consumption. I've heard that we need to reduce our consumption to a sixth of what it is currently, the average person living in the developed world. So to think that you could just do it by reducing your food. You just take food as a category and go, okay, there's one obvious one. Let's eat low on the food web, and that's done. It's very easy to do. It's very straightforward. There's not an awful lot of moving parts on that plan. You just get this vegan movement, and you just run with it. The other ones are trickier. How do you get people off their cell phones? How to get people off their computers, as everybody's solving the problems using their computers and electricity and so forth. And I think the white paper, if this is something that is 100% defensible, and we push it into the right channels, it's going to be an opportunity for everybody to really rethink how we can accomplish that.
Can I jump in quickly? Mm-hmm. You brought up the white paper, and I am a new member of that new study group in BaseCamp. So kind of to bring it back around to the Vegan Collective Intelligence Steering Committee, I don't know, I think BJ is also in that white paper group. I don't know if anyone else is in it who's on the call right now, but and I don't know if I feel capable of leading that group, but I would like to be involved in connecting that group with collective intelligence, so we can, work on the white paper, and I can either be the liaison for collective intelligence or something like that. Yeah, like hold the Zoom meeting, be the facilitator, that kind of thing.
I can't imagine anybody being more qualified to lead that than Sailesh himself. I think that might be one that he needs to be the point guy, because he's the only one that can make any modifications to the white paper. And I imagine there will be modifications to it as the debate unfolds. Well,
and my understanding, and maybe that there needs to be a new group. I thought that this group was also created to like BJ sent out the video of her explaining that land usage graph. So I thought it was things like that where like we make, like Silas has already done the work and he might be making edits to the white paper, but now we can take that and break it into smaller components, maybe? Or
yeah,
or like to be able to spread the message easier. It's basically more digestible for those who aren't into reading scientific papers.
And the politics behind it too, because I think the whole percentage game, the reason why we're talking about the percentage of different sectors is because this has been set up by the FAO. They came out with the Lifestock's Long Shadow right after Al Gore had his An Inconvenient Truth. The same year it comes out. The IPCC didn't ask for it. They just volunteered it. They just published it on their own. And it wasn't climate scientists. It was a bunch of agronomists, which is agroeconomists. That's like a double whammy of bias. What makes money is got a priority for economists. What turns cows and pigs and chickens into money is an agronomist. So why the IPCC thought that they would be a good keeper of the keys of the data is like a 13-year mystery now that you know they were put in charge more or less. They volunteered to be put in charge, and nothing has happened since. They've had one calculation. That's when you surprise somebody. The Livestock's Long Shadow came out. It hit the newspapers. And it was like world news. It's a brand new science. And nothing's happened in 13 years, except for they corrected it from 18% down to 14.5%, using livestock industry money to do that research. That was the USDA and the Beef Checkoff program helped fund that research.
Ray, you may want to turn off the screen share so we can all see each other better. And I often just go back and forth, you know.
So these are the white paper study people, and there'll be more or less as depending on who's involved in that. And maybe it'll branch out into a few different things because there's a lot of different ways to engage the public with that data.
Ray and everyone, I did a flyer, and it's when I submit something, it's something meant for somebody else to take it, do with it what you want, or forget it. And I haven't put it up there yet because it is so basic. But I intended that to be a place to do that, and hope that other people will also, so that then I can use, you know, we can pick and use what we need elsewhere. But it could be a group that only the finished product goes, and that's not what I'm envisioning it now, because we don't have enough time and space to put all of our only finished products. The other thing is, one of the people asked a question on there, and Dr. Rao had already answered that question. It's a question that many people have already come up with, like, what do we do with the land? Do we let it go back naturally, or do we plant trees and make that happen? That question was on there, and I think it was to Dr. Salish, and I wondered if someone else, anyone else could answer that, because we know Dr. Salish is going to be very busy. Or is that a place just for Silas to answer questions? And that's just.
Well, we can see that his example, that place behind me here in India, that was a coffee plantation that they just what was it? They put up the fences to keep the people out, the people and their cows out.
Right.
And it all grew back. It turned into jungle. So now India, at least that fertile parts of India, we don't have to worry about.
Right.
There's a lot of debate about the desertified places, but really a lot of that's kind of a battleground of philosophy that doesn't have an awful lot of realistic implications in the real world. There is a lot of land that was overfarmed and overgrazed, and may be recovered. But I think a lot of it comes down to Alan Savory and people like that who say, look, cows can turn a desert back into arable land. So it's an argument that they say that it can do this, but really what they're after is saying that cows are important. Cows can reverse climate change. Don't take away any of our cows. And that includes places other than the desert. You notice that most of the people that are Alan Savory fans are regular ranchers in North America. They're not on the fringes of the Sahara Desert. They're just looking for the good news about eating food.
Right. They're not interested in the animal life or the wildlife. It's how to attach to the climate change, and we can be a part of it. Sort of thing.
So I would say to Alan Savory, go. There's the Sahara Desert. You can go there. Show us how you can return it back into arable land. But that's not what he's after. That's it's all a narrative that cows are important, and for the fact that's the last line in his TED talk. You can kind of take most of what he says with a grain of salt. Maybe you can use cows to put carbon into the soil. There's lots of political reasons why that's not going to happen, but okay, you're making your argument, that's fine. But his last comment was, I can't think of any way that we're going to be able to reverse climate change and feed the planet at the same time.
And that's crazy.
And then the presenter came over and gave him a hug, and he said, "Oh, everybody here would like to give you a hug because that's what we wanted to hear."
Yeah, that it's okay to eat red meat. Keep eating red meat. We just gotta dial in, adjust the farmers a bit, and that's not your problem. You just keep.
An argument that I've been using more and more lately is it doesn't matter. Like the Joel Salatin is like the homegrown version of Alan Savory. It doesn't matter if he's come up with a system that it can sequester carbon in the soil. We're not going to let him agriculture take down any more forests. That's obviously the wrong direction. We need more forests, not less. And the people that are still thinking that this grass-fed system is the only way to go, they're going to have to convince the government to make legislation to regulate the cattle industry. Has everybody seen What the Health, right? Part of it, you probably don't remember. There's this investigator who says that I've encountered the National Cattlemen's Association many times. They have all the money of Big Pharma and the personality of the National Rifle Association. They think that you're not on their side. They will come and beat you down. These are the people that Joel Salatin's going to say, this is the new system. This is what we're going to do in America now. This is how we're running beef. It has absolutely no future. You're more likely to have a completely vegan nation than you have to overcome the kind of deep pockets that these organizations have. They will bully their way to a stalemate every time.
I spoke with someone who was making the argument that, well, if we do replant trees in between all the cattle and we start sequestering, then you won't have an argument for it because it'll be efficient. You'll sequester the carbon. And I said, well, what about all the wildlife? I mean, that counts too, and we're losing our wildlife. And I think they forget anything about that.
One organization that I've really liked the way that they've approached the problem is Project Drawdown with Hawkins. What's his first name?
Paul
Hawkins.
Paul Hawkins.
Got a book out.
Yeah.
They've got a website, and they've calculated all the different categories of solutions. They're not messing around with this percentage. They're not of applied to different sectors. They're not talking about carbon taxes. They're just saying, let's go to solutions and figure out how much each solution is actually going to save, and we'll choose between now and 2050. So they've got them all charted against each other. And it's a great place to go for agricultural arguments because they're there. You mentioned silvopasture is, growing cows in a forested area.
Paul promotes less meat and a plant-rich diet. I don't think maybe he's changed, but I don't think he promotes going vegan.
No, he's not going to. The foreword to the book was written by Tom Steyer, the presidential candidate who's a rancher.
Oh, holy fuck. Excuse me.
At least the original version of the book was. The new version is written by the new CEO of Project Drawdown or whatever. This is, I still consider it to be a mainstream NGO environmentalist project. So it's not going to embrace veganism. Their plant-rich diet is ranked the 4th best solution, which is phenomenal. Like you won't hear that from a lot of the other organizations, like 350.org is involved in their project, but their organization doesn't say that themselves. Al Gore is not going to publish that kind of information because they have so much invested in fighting the fossil fuels.
Right.
But if you want to compare with, say, Joel Salatin and Alan Savory, they have rotational grazing, and they say that there is a measurable amount that you can prevent greenhouse gases if you do rotational grazing. It's ranked number 19. So Alan Savory is saying this, I can't think of any other solution better that you could feed the world and fight climate change. Well, there's 19 better solutions.
I saw an interview since I was in the Citizens Climate Lobby group. Paul Hawkins was one of the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was surprising to him that food actually was number 1 when you grouped the other things together. Now, he didn't group it that way so that it's real clear to everybody. People say, air conditioning is number 1. But look, it's number 1, but he doesn't put all of those little things together like reforestation and rewilding and,
Yeah, a lot of them are siloed, and really we know that as soon as we start getting rid of the cows, we're going to have a lot more land than what they're counting.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just wanted to add something that just briefly, that I've seen a lot of these lists and I have his book, and the problem is all of these solutions, most of them, if not all, are based in industrial changes and corporate changes. But on a personal level, vegan is the only, when you look at all the solutions, it's like, well, companies have to do this and governments have to do this. But food is the one thing that people have complete control over for the most part, unless they're in a desert. And that's why when you see these solutions and food is number 4, but if you look at the 3 above it, those are things that have to be done on a business and an industrial level.
Mm-hmm. But it's there. It's like the number 1 thing that we can do. Number 3 was food waste. So a lot of people are pointing at that and saying, well, that's even higher than what you eat is how much you throw out. But obviously there's much more food waste that's happening in the animal agriculture industry than there is in the plant producing industry. There's a lot of feed that gets ruined. There's a lot of, when you throw out a piece of meat, you're throwing out all the plants that animal ate.
So I noticed there's a number of folks who want to talk. I'd like to request that we go to the queue system so that people can have an opportunity so they don't have to butt in order to talk.
Is there a queue? I can't.
Yeah, so if you go to the chat, window, I'm just going to type right here into the chat window, okay? So there's a chat window, and to join the queue, thank you, BJ. BJ just set the example. To join the queue, you just type your name into the chat window, right?
All right.
Okay, and so Jamin's next in the queue, followed by BJ, followed by whoever joins the queue next. So what I wanted to suggest is that we have a conversation. We actually talked about this in the previous meeting in the social club, of having a collective intelligence conversation where we invite Dr. Sailesh Rao and Alan Savory, and I would add Paul Hawken, and I would add all of us, right? And we get together and we have a facilitated meeting, just like this meeting is facilitated. We have a facilitated meeting, and we we kick it off with letting, Alan Savory make his case with his data, screen share, whatever you got. What you got, Alan Savory? You've obviously been at this for several decades. What you got? Okay. Now, Silas, what you got? Right? And then we, Paul Hawken, what you got? Right? Silas just said 87% for animal agriculture. Why the heck isn't that number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your list? Not way down there, number 4. It should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? Okay. So anyway, you got my mullet activated there. So, let everyone have their say, and then let's have a facilitated, not a debate, not a, knockdown drag out, but, let's have an actual conversation, which is what we're doing right here. We're having actual conversations. So bring collective intelligence to it, not so that there's a winner to the debate, but it's the beginning of a conversation that can be an ongoing conversation. Well, goodness, you brought up some really good points. I hadn't seen that data. Let me take a look at that. Let me read that paper. And then when we reconvene in a couple of weeks, each one will have digested what the other one put out, right? Including all the chats and the hyperlinks and everything else and the transcripts and everything else. Do your homework. Address what, needs to be addressed. And then we come back together and, okay, great. Now that we've digested, here's round 2. Bing! No, it's not a boxing match. It's a collaboration. It's collective intelligence. It's finding that synthesis on a higher plane. And like Ann said at the previous meeting today on the social club, Alan Savory, hallelujah to holistic land management. Just don't kill the animals, dude. Right? And, period. And then with that, we can bring back some of the other top of the food chain, the ones who hunt the wildebeests and the gazelles and all that. Let them come back and play their ecosystem roles, right?
That's actually the reason why that wouldn't work. Because I was thinking about the silvopasture argument that they have, that they'll just grow back the forest. And I'm like, what a great way to transition out of animal agriculture is to just grow the forest first and kind of phase out the animals. If where this system would work, it would fail because you'd grow back this forest and they would continue to kill the apex predators. As they return to the forest, they would have to protect their cows by shooting the cougars and wolf and any sort of all the things that they kill now. So it's kind of a good idea on the surface of things. And if you could ever get by the, like I mentioned, the Draconian Cattlemen's Association and get people to do things like silvopasture, or even get crop farmers to do things like grow forests back and learn how to monetize forests for food rather than row crops, which, we could sell on the world market or turn into cattle feed. They're very hard to convince to change from their current system that it's got so much money forcing things to stay the way they are.
So with so many moving parts, I just want to make one more comment before I pass it to BJ. With so many moving parts to all this, do we allow predators? Do we not? Do we manage the herds? Do we just let them run wild? What do we do? Who do we let in? Who do we keep out? Do we keep the humans out? Do we keep the animals out? Do we keep only the predators? Who's in, who's out? And how do we manage all that? Just imagine conceptually, okay, theoretically, imagine we zoom out and we're looking at the whole big computer model of Mother Earth. Imagine that for every chunk of land of, say, 5,000 acres or 10,000, some chunk that's just that's all kind of natural, contiguous, it all kind of goes together like a watershed or something like that. Imagine that for every chunk of land, there is some optimal answer to the question, what do we do with this chunk of land? And imagine that it actually might be a different answer depending on whether it's a chunk of desert or a chunk of rainforest or a chunk of savanna or a chunk of marshland or a chunk of mountain land, or what Ray just put up on the screen, that chunk of land right there. What do we do with that chunk of land? Okay.
Those cows look confused, don't they?
Even the cows are confused with the question, right? Because it's a confusing question, because the reality is there's going to be a different answer for each chunk of land. So how do we create the collective intelligence so that we can answer that question, times 10 million or however many chunks of land there are on the planet, but in a systematic way? So, but I think the starting point is bring together this kind of who's who of what do we do with that land? Bring in the Alan Savory, bring in the Dr. Silas Rao, bring in the Paul Hawken, bring in, us, right? And, let's have the conversation, not just one conversation.
I needed you to be there when I pitched to the City of Toronto, their environmental department. They had a brochure that said, this is the future of Toronto. We're going to be rooftop gardening, and we're going to have these people working in cricket factories. And I asked them, what about, you mentioned cricket factories in your brochure, and they said, yeah, we heard about this bug protein thing, and we threw it in there. We haven't really researched it yet. And I said, well, that's kind of an interesting angle to take. Why don't we have a film festival? We can have this documentary, Bugs on the Menu, and we have, Cowspiracy and some documentaries about plant-based food, and maybe the clean meat documentary. I have a friend who's doing a documentary about Memphis meats and growing the vat-grown meat. They want to call it clean meat or cellular agriculture. I call it vat-grown meat. And have, I said battle royal to see which one everybody likes the most. You're saying taking a much more political approach, that we'll have a friendly conversation. We'll let each one have their say, and maybe that kind of approach could have had this film festival of the three. The ace in the hole, the joker that I was going to play in that is also have a presentation by Dr. Garth Davis, who wrote the book Proteinaholic. Because if we're deciding what's the protein of the future, the answer is none of the above. You don't really need to have 60-80% of your agriculture dedicated to protein production. We've been doing this wrong the whole time. We don't need bugs. We got everything we need in plants. It's probably the most boring of the three options, but it's the one that's going to win. I have confidence that it will.
Well, anyway, but my point is there isn't just one that's going to win, right? I mean, there might be one dominant paradigm, like everyone goes vegan, that might win, but that still doesn't answer the question, what do we do with each chunk of land? So all I'm saying, right, it's like, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, all we're saying is give peace a chance. All I'm saying is we need a collective intelligence to answer the question, what do we do with that chunk of land for each of the 10 million chunks of land all around the world? We need a collective intelligence for that. And all I'm saying is, to help kickstart that, let's have some of these kind of, semi-famous and famous people come together and have this holistic conversation, not as a knockdown, drag-out debate, but as the beginning of a collective intelligence that will ultimately answer these questions, right?
Didn't that kind of fit into the same paradigm, the same different meaning of what is going to be the protein of the future? I didn't say that there would be a winner at the end of it. I just know I would just be confident and confident engaging in that conversation. And I think the most important thing about that conversation is what one wasn't on the option. And we had bugs, we had vat-grown meat, and plants. Cows wasn't one of them, That's the point. That's how you come out of that kind of a film festival where all three can be winners, because the one that we're doing now is a loser.
Awesome. BJ, you've been very patient. Take it away, BJ.
It's been very interesting. And one of the things Silas Rao said is it will take different types of land management in different areas, which is just what you're saying, that collectiveness. I hope there's somebody else besides Alan Savory to invite. I don't know. He doesn't seem that reputable. Maybe there are a lot of people that do follow him, and if it would bring that crowd in.
It'd be more the Joel Salatin crowd, especially.
I think that would be the better crowd to bring in than Alan.
And he was in Food Inc., right? That was the one he was featured.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's part of the public forum, and that's probably a reasonable place to start. I wouldn't want to give Alan Savory as any platform. He's right. He's on the Virgin Earth Challenge is one of the best solutions for mitigating climate change. One of the finalists. They had a prize that they were going to give to the best solution.
Right. I wouldn't want to give him any more credibility.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's take it as a homework assignment. Who do we invite and who do we exclude from a kind of big ticket, if you will, kickoff conversation where we have clear rules, Robert's Rules of Order. If you want to speak for 5 minutes, please get in the queue. If you want to give a quick interjection following on somebody's comment, like what BJ is talking about, jump in, give a quick interjection. Have clear rules, so it's not just like a shouting match on Fox News or something like that, right? But let's take this as a homework assignment and bring it to our next meeting, well thought out, well digested, because what we don't want is some, rivalrous competitive dynamic to set up between two people who've hated each other for half a century, and now they're going to get together in some big violent confrontation, ego fest, interruption fest. Anyway, that's my point. But let's think about it. Let's take it. Let's apply our collective intelligence to it, and think about like Silas Rao. He can totally hang with other people. He doesn't interrupt other people, right? And he's very compassionate. And I know Alan Savory. I interviewed him for almost 2 hours. It's on my YouTube channel, but I'll get it up on the homepage of Radish because it's becoming increasingly important. Went to one of his 2-day conferences just to learn, just to see, right? And this was before I had really gotten the big vegan message. And truth be told, it was something that kind of helped me feel better about eating meat, right? So it's definitely a double-edged sword. But as I interviewed him, I mean, he's a very sensible guy, very easy to talk with, and has a lot of knowledge, and has he's an important node. He might be Darth Vader, who's someone I actually dress up as when I go out in public and do certain activist things. But he may be Darth Vader, but he knows a bunch of stuff, right? And has a lot of experience and a lot of network, a lot of connections, and a lot of following. So if we get him on, right, whoosh, we're going to suddenly have a whole bunch of people tuning into this vegan collective intelligence thing and saying, wow, they're not only vegan, but they're also open-minded and they're also compassionate.
It's hard to tell how much he's still in the public circle. I mean, he's still going to be the hero of the agricultural, of the ranchers class, but I think the Sierra Club article of about 2 years ago kind of did him in. They did a pretty clear exposition on how he's been working at this, trying to prove this theorem for 40 years, and it's just come to the point where it can't be replicated. It's not any kind of agricultural science if it can't be replicated. And I could share that article. It was
please do.
In their monthly magazine. I think it was written by the editor of the magazine.
Can I finish what I was going to say?
Please, BJ. Go, BJ.
This came up a while back, but it was about Paul Hawken. And one of the arguments that I use when people say, well, what about this? And I'm doing everything I can. I bicycle or whatever. And sometimes it's appropriate for me to say, well, those are good, but it's kind of a shotgun approach. We don't know how much will that really work. Even in Paul Hawken's book, how many of those, which one are we going to work on as a community? If we feed algae to cows, is that really going to do it? And do we have to do some of air conditioning and some algae and some this? Whereas we pretty much know from that model that Silas Rao did, that math model, that we can solve climate change by going vegan. And those others are good things some of those others are good things to do, but it's more of a shotgun approach to it.
And some of them are transitionary. They'll work while we have cows. While the appetite is out there, there's not really much we can do we can promote the vegan world, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
So obviously those cows, those poor confused cows, I'm looking at the picture right now, standing in the forest. That's a solution. That's one of the things that will be a transitionary solution, kind of the same conversation that they have in fossil fuels is fracking and natural gas, a way to get off of coal. And James Hansen, one of the most reputable people in the climate change movement, says nuclear is something we should desperately consider, as coal is just that bad that nuclear is worth the risk. Sorry.
Nancy has her hand up. Thanks for. Oh, BJ, were you done with your comment? Okay, great. Nancy, take it away, Nancy. And Nancy, we're pretty good at reading lips, but
sorry, there have been studies, because I've gotten into conversations before that tried to make Savory's theories work, and it's been a number of them. They just realize that they can't. And if you go on his page, I've had a conversation on his page once, and I knew it was a pointless gesture, but I still wanted to get on there and throw some stuff out. And reminded of Abraham Lincoln said that hopeless causes are the only ones worth fighting for. Sometimes it can seem like a hopeless cause to try to get the world go vegan, but I feel very strongly that we can. All right, signing out now.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Nancy. Beautiful. No, and this, my point is, we just look. It's almost like I hear these like sound bites going out about da 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 da. Therefore, Alan Savory, and I appreciate all that. But the point of collective intelligence is you bring in different perspectives, and it's not like you're endorsing Alan Savory if you bring him on as a guest in a structured format. Give him his 20 minutes to present. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Well, I would make the argument to Nancy and BJ and Ray that bringing him on could almost do more than excluding him from the conversation. If you really believe that his argument won't hold up to someone like Dr. Rao, then by all means, let's bring him on, And that's kind of, when I heard Alan Savory, I didn't want his argument to be true. So I want to hear how that conversation would play out. And I would hope that people that follow him would then hear that conversation and learn the other perspective, which isn't presented in his TED Talk. You have to go look for that other perspective, whereas we can bring both perspectives into the same conversation, or multiple perspectives.
And collaborate. I don't like seeing it as a debate. I like seeing it as a collaboration. Everybody's trying to accomplish the same thing here. We just need to work together, and even if, that's.
And also to be clear, I just want to make a quick point. Just to be clear, it's not like, are we going to bring him on to our steering committee meeting and take valuable time away from something we'd rather be talking about? Let's just do it as a totally separate meeting. And if you want to show up and be in a conversation with Alan Savory and Silas Rao and Paul Hawking and whoever, great, come. If you don't. It's just like, if they're willing, let's do it. If they're not willing, well, that's interesting. Who wasn't willing? And let's talk about that. Right? All right. Whoever was talking next, go ahead. Go ahead, BJ. You're on mute, BJ. You're muted. You're on mute. Your microphone is okay. Now you're good.
Okay, thank you. Because I have done front yard gardening and a little bit of permaculture and veganic gardening, I went ahead and signed up on Extinction Rebellion's farmers page. And are you familiar with that page? Well, they have a page where there are a bunch of farmers who want to help fight climate change by farming regeneratively, and that means farming and ranching. And I had some interesting conversations with them, but their mindset is not, it can't really be for change because they are interested in the economics, their whole frame of how to move. Maybe, people do change. We have a new group out here, Rowdy Girl has a group, she's moved in our area, the Ranchery Advisory Group or something like that. Yeah, yay. And so people do change, and sometimes something does catch to their heart that wants them to move on. Anyway, they gave me recommendations of videos I should watch, and I don't know how to counter some of the things that they're saying, but I'd like to hear some of Nancy sometimes write up a rebuttal to what they're saying. So maybe a conversation would be good. I don't know. Thank you.
I'll reply really quickly. BJ, that seems like a great topic for our white paper study group. Like, how can we target that towards other farmers, and specifically farmers that are interested in regenerative farming and say that they're interested in helping rebuild a healthy environment? How can we translate the white paper to them specifically?
Renee's in our base camp, so she would be able to represent the Ranchers Advocacy Program. One of my former employers is also in the group as well. He's kept an old email address, but he's involved in it as well. Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of, that's a whole category that we do have in our changing jobs study group. And I mentioned there's a huge industry that's like veterinarians that are trained to handle animals grown for food. They need to find a new place in the world, and that might be at our temporary farm sanctuaries. And all the, I mean, part of the reason why we're not going to see the end of animal agriculture subsidies too quickly is because there's just so many people employed via the production and processing and delivery and byproducts. The byproducts are billions of dollars on their own, just for leather and wool, and I guess wool is more of a main product for the sheep agriculture, but it's something I've been paying attention to, because in Canada I sent a petition to the climate change department of the Canadian government saying, how come you don't have animal agriculture on your website? And I know the reason why is because there's part of the government that makes money off of animal agriculture. So the other ones aren't allowed to talk about how their impact is affecting climate change. Until we solve the externalities problem, that any industry has a certain amount of waste and byproduct that results from it. As long as they're allowed to pretend that they don't exist, there's not really an awful lot of solutions that our governments are able to offer us. So I mean, it makes it all the more important that we look at those solutions in the drawdown list, which are the ones that we can do ourselves, because those are the ones that lead to change. And even Al Gore, who I've had many problems with, he's was prompted by Maria Shriver, and I've got the little video clip of him where she says, "What we eat is important too, right?" And he says, "Oh yeah, we got to use all our choices in life, and we got to change how the market is run." And he said the Paris Accord doesn't give us everything that we needed, that we wanted, but in everybody signing it, it immediately had an effect on the markets. It sent out a message that buy fossil fuel interests at your own peril, because they've signed the climate accord.
All right, next in the queue is Jamin, and no one's after Jamin, so feel free to jump in the queue if you'd like to share for a bit. And I'd like to bring up two topics. One is putting drawdown in its proper context, right? So I may have mentioned this earlier. Did I talk about this earlier? There's two ways to cool a planet, or was that last meeting? Did I talk about there's two ways to cool a planet on this meeting? Okay, BJ, go ahead.
I'd like to interrupt because you did say there were 2 this meeting, and I wrote in there and trees, and I didn't know if that included that, but you did say it this meeting.
Okay. So there's 2 ways to cool a planet. Just to recap it super quick. There's 2 ways to cool a planet. One is drawdown, reducing the layer of greenhouse gases. The other is to reflect sunlight back into space. So basically, on whatever bookshelf you've got drawdown, there needs to be a book right next to it called SRM. Okay, and the rules of this school that we're in go as follows. If you want to graduate with flying colors and go on to have a wonderful career called life and living, you need to get at least an A- in one of 2 topics. One is drawdown, the other is SRM. If you get even an A- in either one of those, you graduate with flying colors and you get to live, right? But if you get like C- in one and B- in the other, we're all dead, okay? We've been taking every report card we've ever taken home in the last 10 semesters, we've gotten a big fat F on the course called drawdown. There was a couple semesters that we got like a D+, when the economy went into an almost recession, right? But before then and after then, it's been straight Fs. There's another class that hardly anyone ever talks about, which is called SRM. And we can get an A+ in SRM and still get a big fat F in drawdown. Not that I'm advocating for that. Please don't get me wrong, okay? But I'm just saying, while we're putting in extra hours and studying hard on drawdown and trying, right? Let's at least spend a couple hours a week working on this other class called SRM, because we can ace that easily. It's just about putting enough arrays of mirrors in the ocean to reflect sunlight away. So God bless the volume drawdown. That's your textbook for the course that you keep getting Fs in, humanity. I'm not saying don't stop trying, right? It's like Harvey Milk when he was said, well, what do you say about the argument that gays can't have children and therefore it's something? He said, look, it's well known gays can't have children, but God knows we keep trying, right? And so it's not for lack of trying. So I'm saying, keep trying doing the drawdown thing. But from the bottom of my heart, I really hope humanity, I hope you succeed. Give it your go. But don't neglect the damn SRM course, because that can help us stay alive while we're going from F to F+ to D- to D to D+ to C. We're out of time. The planet's, we're overheating. We can't take the heat. So please don't forget SRM. And while we're working on drawdown in parallel, okay? So, and just look at how much of the debate is drawdown. It's all within the realm of that one volume that we keep getting Fs in, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a way to life. There's a path to life in the very short term. It's called SRM, period, end of story. And yes, let's keep trying at drawdown. And yes, let's build a collective intelligence around this so we can do drawdown smart rather than stupid, right? Which is how we've been going about it. Okay. The second thing I want to suggest.
To be clear, I haven't mentioned the field of drawdown. Every time I've mentioned it, it's been Project Drawdown by Paul Hawken, just that limited scope.
No, I understand, but beyond Project Drawdown, there is this field called drawdown, right? Which is a combination of 2 subfields. I mean, it was made popular by Paul Hawken.
Is it a bad term, or is it just another descriptor to call it geoengineering?
No, geoengineering couldn't be more different than drawdown. Those are 2 totally different. Those don't even swim in the same swimming pool.
Well, you talk about reflecting and mechanical methods of reflecting. I was kind of grouping in with the ideas of geoengineering. Some of them being, really scary and dangerous.
No. To be clear, SRM is a proper subset of the broader field of geoengineering.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Drawdown has nothing to do with geoengineering. Okay, and so but of all the ways to do geoengineering, there's only one that cools the planet, and that's SRM. Now, SRM, there's a lot of ways to do SRM, including a lot of really stupid ways that have been proposed. So, what Dr. Yatow of Harvard and I and colleagues are working on is the smart way of doing SRM. Anyway.
The best way to study that is to get an introduction to that. Is that through Radish?
I would actually, the best way to get an introduction is to go to Wikipedia and type in solar radiation management.
I'm a scholar. I can't possibly go to Wikipedia. Okay, I'll go to Wikipedia.
And then the next thing to do after that is to watch the video on my YouTube channel called SRM with Guy McPherson, Ye Tao, Eteha, etc. So that's so after perusing the Wikipedia page on solar radiation management, please watch that recorded video. And oh yeah, Dr. Ye Tao, I'll spell it here, Ye Tao. And he was introduced to me by Professor Guy McPherson. I think I told the story. Okay, so that was the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is let's talk about how and where, and we don't have to decide this now, but at least let's start the wheels turning on how and where we create a whole menu of these different teams that are doing actual conversations like this, which move things forward incredibly quickly, so that I kind of envision a dialectic happening. So, you know, let's just say once a week for a given topic, we meet, have a Zoom meeting, it's recorded, it's transcribed, boop, it's published with transcript, with chat text, etc. That happens. And then in the week between meetings, discussion forum-like stuff happens, both on BaseCamp, but also on Reddit, because Reddit allows you to multi-thread and do all this cool stuff, right? So we're basically talking about this kind of holy trinity between Zoom, BaseCamp, Reddit, and actually other services as well, Google Docs, Google Search. There's a whole bunch of things that are being cobbled together, but we need a home base where people can go to find all of these active conversations within the vegan collective intelligence, right? And to be able to put them on their calendar, and then, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that this is something important for us to figure out. BaseCamp exists and is doing great. In order for these conversations to become more visible and really have a way to invite these different teams and topic areas, you know, like Suzanne volunteered to, you know, hey, I can be the liaison to the white paper working group. I would say, you know, if you are feeling it, go ahead and reach out to Silas and say, hey, I'd like to schedule, you know, a recurring meeting, very much in the frame of collective intelligence. So then we'll have the steering committee meeting and we'll have the white paper meeting. And if anyone else is ready to start a meeting on a given topic, this is your time to lead, right? And just, you know, figure out a good frequency, a good day and time, and reach out to everyone and say, hey, I want to do this. And then we can start to get a list going, and that'll be the beginning of this community of conversations. And when I say a conversation, I really mean a series of conversations.
Can I add something real
Please.
quick?
Please.
Maybe Ray, you're going to have the most visibility into this, but you're going to be able to tell which groups are the most active and could benefit from having conversations on a weekly basis or on a monthly, whatever basis they want to have conversations. But you're the one who...
Some of them are already having conversations. Just
yeah.
Not on BaseCamp.
If there's a way we could...
Probably on Zoom, but not... we're aware of.
Propose, you know, just as an option for them to start using Zoom. I find Zoom incredibly helpful for this type of brainstorming stuff. Mm-hmm. I would think that, you know, these groups could benefit from it in some way as well.
Yeah, especially when you see a synergy between two groups that have previously not had any connection. All of a sudden there's a topic that overlaps the two of them.
Yeah.
You have a resource of videos that you can go into and prime yourself up so you know how to speak the language. Mm-hmm. And search engines, you know, here's search engines that could find topical information on videos, transcripts over hundreds of hours, thousands of hours.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what we're going to bolt on. We haven't done it yet. We're getting close to having that bolted on. But anyway, but back to the core idea of a menu. And then, you know, we start to spread the word that there's now this menu of these great conversations happening that you can join and actually talk to people. You know, yeah, a lot gets done with people typing stuff, but I think we've really lost, you know, the lost art of actual conversations like what we're doing right here, right now. Look how powerful this is, right? And so all I'm saying is let's create a map. And the first step is, well, we've got the first two. We've got the steering community, this one that meets every Tuesday at 3 p.m. God bless this meeting and may it go on forever, right? And Suzanne, you'll reach out to Silas and set something up. Let us all know, put it up on BaseCamp. And then we'll have two. Let's start with those two. And then, hey, can we go three? Who wants to start a meeting on, you know, a conversation on ending, you know, government subsidies for animal agriculture, for example? Great, let's do that. You know, vegan health. Anyway, from that list, I'm just putting the word out to people here and people watching, whoever watches this video. Please think about what meeting or conversation or topic you would like to lead. Because right now, it's the whole giant green field. Just stake your claim, right? The only two that are, you know, taken, so to speak, are steering community, what we're doing right here for the Vegan Collective Intelligence, and the white paper on veganism, right? Everything else is up for grabs. So this is actually a, you know, kind of a gold rush opportunity to stake your claim and say, yeah, I'm going to start the one on vegan permaculture. Great. I don't care if you're not an expert. We just need someone to step forward. We need MacArthur's to come and pull Excaliburs out of rocks, basically. Give it a tug and, you know, try it out.
Especially for ones like the determining how to end subsidies for, you know, the industries that are obviously an obstacle to beating climate change in a timely fashion. The obstacles that you're presented with aren't always evident to people. In Canada, we've had our second March on Parliament where we've, some friends of mine have an organization called Nation Rising. So we've marched on Parliament and demanded an end to subsidies. Not surprisingly, they still have subsidies. So part of it is a great team building exercise and a declaration that we really shouldn't have these subsidies, because a lot of people don't even know. Even people who eat meat don't realize that their food is being subsidized, and they may have an opinion on that. I actually, for a provincial demonstration that I did, that there was some money that was being given to slaughterhouses in Ontario. I went to the University of Toronto and tried to get students to come to this rally that was at the Parliament, which was pretty right next door to the university. And it was the least radical university grounds that I've ever seen. Nobody was interested in protesting anything, except for one guy, and he was not a vegan. He just hated subsidies. He was like, why are we subsidizing meat industry? Why are they not competing on the free market? And he showed up and he was right there with the vegans waving a sign.
So Nancy has written something really relevant here, that there is already an organized effort called Vegan Justice League to create a government lobby to end animal agriculture subsidies. So here's a radical idea. Why don't we reach out to them and invite them to a kickoff conversation on a collective intelligence, building a collective intelligence to end government subsidies for animal agriculture? Would you get? They're going to say, yes, we're interested. Where do I sign up? Right, right here. So, would anyone like to take the lead on that? Right?
I know them.
Well, you got it. Awesome, Ray. Great. Well, let us know what day and time the kickoff meeting will be. So
I think I'll just invite them to join the BaseCamp, because I think that everything that we're doing is right up their alley. There's
Right,
also a vegan index on the stock exchange. I know the person that got that started. It's a very specific thing, but
right. But here's the thing, Ray. What I'm proposing is, yes, definitely invite them to BaseCamp. But what I'm saying, and here's my point, in addition to inviting them to BaseCamp, so I'd like to see somebody, and it could be you or it could be somebody else, but I'd like to see somebody commit to organizing a meeting, a Zoom video conference with them and with the rest of us, anyone who wants to join, and let's do this, but focused on ending government subsidies of animal agriculture. Let's have that kickoff meeting. So I'd like to know, would you or would anyone else, I'm not trying to put pressure on anyone, I'm just saying, is there anyone here who would actually like to commit to that? Because if not, I will.
It looked like Nancy wrote something in the chat about contacting them. I don't know if, Nancy, you're interested in setting up a Zoom meeting too, or just in connecting us all?
I could set up a Zoom meeting, sure. Now, someone else chimed in that he knows her. Somebody said they already know her. They might know her better than I do.
I know Laura Montoya-Reese.
Oh, this is the person, Connie Spence. I think
Yeah, she's the founder.
Girl. Yeah, and I
don't know her as much. So
oh, okay.
Knows her.
Oh, all right.
I was just going to contact through Laura. You know.
If you already know them, then go ahead and do that. You know.
But do you know the other gal, Nancy?
No, I just know
Okay.
Connie, that's really what I know.
Okay. So who would like to take on the role of coordinating and organizing the meeting? The first.
I'll do it.
Nancy. All right. So
I know I'll have to get up off my couch to do it. I will.
Well, I'm going to let you manage that. But I'll mark you down for that. Nancy will organize Zoom meeting on ending government subsidies for animal agriculture. This is the beginning of the end of government subsidies. This is it. Yeah, go ahead.
She's got a lobby group. There's also the Plant-Based Food Association, and they do some lobbying also. And they probably would be good to include on it, because I have no idea, those things just seem like this monolith, impenetrable monolith.
What seems like a monolith?
These subsidies.
No, we're about to be vegan liquid Drano for these.
Well, honestly, this is relevant. I have decided that the entire animal, fowl, fish, agriculture is big drug cartel. It's the drug industries that stand to lose the most, because farms, people can grow other things, but those drug industries are nasty and they're powerful. They say things like, oh, antibiotic free. Well, you know what they're going to do? They're just going to make another drug that does the same thing and call it something else. But I really do. I think they're a big drug cartel. But I think we still worth trying. We've still got to move on it. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, and so Nancy, will you include reaching out to the Plant-Based Food Association?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Good, that'd be awesome.
So I'll reach out to Connie and the Plant-Based Food Association.
I would say reach out to as many folks and groups and individuals as you practically can, and feel free to reach out for help if you need help. BaseCamp is great for delegating stuff out and saying, "Hey, I need help with this." Right, Ray?
Fabulous.
Yeah, I just added Nancy to the BaseCamp for ending subsidies study group. Does anybody else want to?
I'm so excited about that. Torch them.
I've already added. So far, there was Sailesh and myself, but I've added the researcher for that Nation Rising group that I mentioned. I as soon as I got on BaseCamp, I posted on their Facebook page who wants to represent Nation Rising in our ending subsidies study group, and I got 2 volunteers. But I put Jeff Dunkervoot on the page. It may be somebody I know in real life, but I know him more on Facebook. He didn't have his face on the page, so I'll probably go, "Oh yeah, I know you." We've clearly marched together.
I feel really good about where we're at, because now we've gone from 1 topic, repetitive, series of conversations to 3. We're now a 3-headed monster. The white paper, which will be the basis for all the education and outreach, I mean, we just perfect the heck out of that, right? And perfect its summary, perfect its proof points, Q&A. We're ready for any debate with anyone at any time. That'll get that dialed in. The eliminating government subsidies. Goodness, you want to balance the budget? Quit handing out money to people who are destroying the planet. Same with oil subsidies. But that's a separate topic. But is it? It's all connected, right? This is government corruption, is what it is, right? It's just corruption, period. Private sector, government, corrupt partnership. Anyway, I could go on, but this is a really good big 3. We got white paper, we got government corruption, subsidies, and we've got steering committee for the Vegan Collective Intelligence. And what do you want to bet next week? We'll pop out 3 or 4 more, right? This is the beginning of the end of the meat industry. There, I said it. You're right. You want somebody to assassinate? I'm the dude, right? Okay, so, and it's going to be collective intelligence and love and compassion and wisdom and spirit and the whole shebango. So, wonderful.
The director of the End of Meat stayed in my guest room while he was filming in Toronto. So I feel partially responsible.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, what a collective intelligence we've got brewing here. This is the hub of the Vegan Collective Intelligence. We're now throwing out spokes and helping spawn, because that's what the hub does. It also helps spawn the individual topic series of conversations. We need a tighter way of saying that, a series of conversations, right?
I suppose this is going to come down to me, but I can field it as if anybody's really interested in devising a method by which everybody can see all the different categories and volunteering for them, to be added to the different categories.
Love it.
Tyler suggested a Google survey, I think was the word he used. And you can tell by my question mark that I'm not really that familiar with making Google surveys.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody want to help?
Is there I believe there's already a document that exists that has like a master list, right?
But in terms of gathering input from people,
I
I'd be
can
willing
take a
to help.
screenshot of all the different categories right now and post it here.
Yeah,
so
I'd be willing to help with the Google survey.
Yeah, we can survey and find out what people want to do.
Some of them need a little bit of a description, like the Aquarius study group.
Yeah.
Isn't actually anything to do with horoscopes. And some of them are a lot more general, like our own Vegan Collective Intelligence group. That kind of is as we mentioned, you'll probably have liaisons with all the different groups because they all need intelligence and have intelligence to share. But most of them are very much more specific. Some of them, especially ones that get into the politics, there might be a need to be more granular and have more groups dedicated to anti-speciesism, anti-racism, and maybe even feminism. Ecofeminism seems like a logical one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe you and I can connect outside this meeting to figure out what should be on the survey and how to best describe things.
Okay.
Cool.
And please email all of us or put it on BaseCamp about that survey specifically so that various people can contribute. We'll use our collective intelligence. Because I think I love this idea. It's all clicking for me now. Because somebody gets an email, survey, great, I'll fill out the survey, Which topics are you interested in? Which topics would you be willing to lead?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, these topics already exist and have leadership. These don't. So of these that are lacking leadership, would you be interested in leading anyone? Leaders needed. And all right, I hear my calling, right? Of course I'll lead on this topic. But this survey gives them an opportunity to say yes to that.
Yeah. One that I'm familiar with is the find my Interfaith Vegan Coalition. I'm actually a member of it. I joined up so that Salesh would detour to Toronto and have a potluck with us while he was driving across the United States. We were the one Canadian stop. So I know, and I met Lisa Levinson at the conference in Toronto. We had the World Religions, Conference of World Religions, I think that was what it was called. So I met her there, and I think she's also a fellow live streamer for Jane Unchained. So that's a situation where there was a group, an existing group that just fit like a puzzle piece right into the projects. And if there were people other than the ones that were involved in that group, they might have been added. But I have a feeling most of the people are familiar with that organization from Facebook. And then, but of course, anybody that's got things to contribute to that project, I'm sure are welcome to join. It's a huge demographic, and you think about everybody's worldview and how they get their understanding of the universe. The people that subscribe to a religion look to their leaders. So those leaders of various religions have so much of a responsibility to interpret our crisis in the through the filter of their faith. It's a big demographic to change. 2 billion Catholics.
1 billion Catholics, and actually,
is it 1 billion?
Yeah, and a colleague of mine, Jamie Gilchrist, out in Ohio, he and I have spent about a year lobbying the Catholic Church and created a proposal for the Pope. And anyway, that's another topic for another day. But the religion is a great way, and veganism, what a way to enter. You know
about the $1 Million Vegan campaign, right?
I do. Yeah. So anyway, so lots of good stuff to talk there. So this is super exciting because after we've done the survey, we'll then have a bunch of people saying, yes, I want to lead this, I want to lead that. If we can get this done by next week's steering committee meeting, great. We bring all these new leaders, great, show up in the meeting, and let's help get you launched. Who wants to help this person lead? This person's taking the lead. Who else wants to be in it? Who wants to support? What do you need? This is collective intelligence helping birth a bunch of these conversations. And when I say conversation, I really mean series of conversations, right? Get it all plugged in to BaseCamp. Ray, you're the godfather of BaseCamp. You're there to support and help and all that good stuff. And so, I think I'm just super excited. I think we got a plan. Right, we've gone from 1 to 3, and now with the survey, we'll go from 3 to many. Right, and away we go. And then the steering committee will have a busy first hour of updates from these different groups, and then we'll take it from there and say, all right, what else do we need to do? What else do we need to do as a collective intelligence? This hub and spoke model, and then again going out into space. Thank you, Nancy. We'll start to form the United Nations of collective intelligences. Vegan, SRM, collective intelligence, arcology, holistic land management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So exciting. All righty. Well, we've been at it for 3.5 hours. I'm going to need to get rolling here pretty quick, but I don't need to stop the meeting. If other people have stuff to say, we can keep it rolling, and I can just.
We got to get going too.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to say before we stop recording?
This has been wonderful. Thank you. The only question I had, which might need to just be dropped, but it's so fun to get to know you a little bit, and then a leader emerged. So like when Susan, talked, then I already trust her a little bit. I already know Ray's name for a long time. He doesn't know me, but so I'm wondering when we do these groups, but then I think you're right. Maybe just let people who are already vegan and in our group, in our group let anybody leads who wants to, but I didn't know if you were talking about people from the outside coming in. I would feel hesitant. So if you're talking about people that are in climate healers and vegan and
yeah, I suggest, love to hear everyone's thoughts, but I suggest we start with inside climate healers, but then we let people come and be guests of our, steering community meeting. That way we can all kind of check them out. And hey, is this someone check them out. That would be one of many functions of the meeting. But, if they say, hey, look, I'm not a vegan, but I'd love to lead this group or whatever, maybe we have some process of, filtering in, filtering out, or working with people who want to be leaders. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem, though. I think we're going to do our recruiting from within Climate Healer. You want to be a Climate Healer vegan? Join Climate Healers, and then you can be, considered for whatever. But that's kind of your first step, right?
There's also that extra level of involvement on BaseCamp where you can invite clients. I did manage to figure out how it works now.
But I mean, yeah.
So I've added my wife as a client, so they'll be able to be involved in that particular discussion group. So you can invite somebody to come in. It doesn't even need to be a Zoom meeting. It may be just we want to talk on have an ongoing conversation within the BaseCamp, and just kind of type your messages and leave it for the next person to answer. It's there as an option.
All righty. Any other comments or questions or anything before we stop recording? Oh, I have a question to everyone. Is everyone cool with me publishing this recording on my YouTube channel publicly for the world to see?
I have no problem.
Everybody cool? Nancy, is that a thumbs up or is that a no or maybe a thumbs up? Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, thanks, Nancy.
So that button that says more, save chat, it saves a text file somewhere on your computer.
Oh.
As soon as you click on it. So I just did it. But you could, anybody who wants to save that chat.
Could you send that to me? I'm on an iPad, so I don't actually have that up.
Yeah, I guess I could put it right on the as a note. What are they called?
Well, here's what I propose. Let me, when I have the YouTube video of this recording, I'll email it to everyone with the chat text file attached to it. And in fact, I might even just paste it into the description if they let me post something that long. But one way or another, I'll get it to the group.
I just dragged it into the docs and files of our BaseCamp, so it's there as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for doing that. Perfect. Nice.
All right, we're going to sign off.
That could be a good homework assignment. Try to find a file on BaseCamp.
Thanks, everybody.
All
this has
right,
been an awesome meeting.
Benjamin and Suzanne, what a marathon day. Thank you so much for sticking with it the whole time. Love it. Great work.
Watch you for an hour and 40 minutes before the meeting, so it's great to have this. Now I can talk back at the screen and you guys actually hear me.
Yeah. All right, bye, everybody.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for watching. And join us. All righty.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Oh, and just wanted to add, if you would like to join these conversations, whether vegan collective intelligence or any of the other collective intelligences, please sign up on radish.org. There's no cost, never will be. Then you can indicate where you'd like to be in terms of which conversations, which collective intelligence you'd like to join. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.